Someone raid, or did we have 170 people naturally? Because that'd be fucking dope. If someone raided, go and follow them. But I don't know because YouTube's shit at time. Who's going on YouTube that I can send money over to? I'll go over to Katie Marshall on YouTube, but I will mix it up on Twitch. We'll go over to someone different on Twitch. Just spread the love around, you know.
Thanks, Kev.
Who's going on Twitch? Who is this person?
Rejoice, comrades. Brody is here. Hi, Brody. I genuinely mean it. We'll wait until we get some more information about how he's actually going to be doing this. And what 255 said in the chat, he literally had to go. He had to go to Parliament and say, "I want to do this." And yes, he should be in prison. Obviously, full disclosure, I'm a Republican. I'm a Filipino member of Republic. None of these people should fucking exist. Just saying. Ah, fucker. Oh, go away. Annoying me. Very good. Even bigger. Oh, no, 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 no. It's our expense. We pay it. Well, I'll exclude myself from this because I don't pay tax because I'm disabled and on benefits. Comes out of the public purse. We pay for it. We pay for their upkeep and we pay for their upgrades of their buildings. Give me my money back. Imagine what we could do with all the money that we give these fucking parasites. No, no. Yeah, lock them up. Was that you, Phil Decker, that said that earlier on? Yeah, I don't want them in Scotland, fuck off. Bad enough that we've got fucking technically Holyrood House is theirs. By the way, that's a palace in Edinburgh. For more than that, you can ask, I can't give a duck. I can't give a duck. Have you been to Holyrood House? I've been to it many fucking years ago. It's been a while since I've been to it. Hello from Kevstream. Andrew, look, if it's okay with you, I was going to show your video. And if you need any help with audio, it took me a while, and with the help of my mod, Shanna, who is going to be going live in half an hour on her channel, we've managed to get it fixed. If you need any help in that regard, and if you want any topics, I'm a font of useless knowledge. Kind of, maybe. I'm also a font of useful knowledge in certain aspects as well. I'm here to help you all. What say you? What you be saying, Brody? Brody, pin yourself, my good man. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. I'm still hearing what Kev said about your video. You're welcome. Oh, I never noticed you there. Rejoice, another YouTuber in chat. So I have two YouTubers now. There's three of us. Yes. Mobius, hello, hello. Oh, you're welcome, Andrew. There is a few stories I want to read first from the Canary. Go and follow them. They be really good. You can also talk to Curtis about that because he used to work for them. And he's got a great video about how fucking McSweeney bastard and Labour together tried to end the Canary. Haha, failed. Get wrecked, Morgan, did you wank? Oh, look, is that Kev's pal behind Manfog? Hi, Specs. Rejoice, comrades. Welsh comrade. Specs Bean Farmer. How you doing, Specs? Sweet. Let me know. And we can do a watch along if you wish. I'm here to promote smaller channels. Natalk. Hello. Rejoice. Comrades. Natalk in chat. Welcome. Welcome. That is one hell of a headline. Farage is chatting shit about his proposal to leave the ECHR. He's always chatting shit. I hope they lose all their fucking deposits in May. I'm basking in the glory of the cat. Thank you, Natalk. I had no relation to me. This is only a short one, thank fuck for that. I think my throat could do it. Not too far over. Oh, you motherfucker. There we go. I can read now. Ah, my wireless mouse needs charged. Fuck, what is it? IBM numpty. Should have actually checked it earlier on. I wouldn't. Ah, motherfucker. Haha, there we go. Wireless mouse charging. Thank God. Refreshment and things. Boom. Nigel Farage, who I like to call Manfrog from here on out. Okay? I don't use his name. Same way as I don't use her name, though it's the Spectre. Far too close to fucking it. Well, technically we are in Halloween. Manfrog is once again wasting everyone's time. I could have told you that. He's presenting a 10-minute bill in Parliament on Britain leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. Get wrecked, Nigel. You're a fucking lunatic, and I despise you. Here's a tweet from Twitter. Get wrecked, Elon. Later today, I will introduce legislation in the House of Commons for the UK to leave the ECHR. Oh my God, look at it. Daily Mail reporting on it. I'm totally shocked. Wouldn't even use this toilet paper. And I would probably haunt me. Oh, specs. If you suspect it's a virus, try not to go to the doctor. If it's a bacterial infection, pharmacists should be able to help you, depending on how bad it is and whether you've got the associated aches and pains, like if you're coughing or anything. Get a really good exfoliant, get 2 bottles of it, and see if that can clear if it's a bacterial infection you've got to just lift whatever's. And take pyretics, paracetamol. Aspirin might help as well. But technically, what's the non-pyretic? According to the Daily Mail, aka the Daily Mail, I like that. That's fun. Manfrog vows to take back our borders. As far as I can tell, we've still got them. But does he realise that the ECHR has fuck all to do with our borders? He knows that. I'm not entirely sure all the grassroots members do, but he knows that. The Daily Moan, which a lot of Scots call it up here. The Reform UK leader told the Daily Mail that Britain's membership of the treaty had totally neutered the government's ability to deport illegal migrants. No. Right. The ECHR protects our rights to life, freedom, and security, respect for private and family life, freedom of expression. Hello, I'm a Republican and a Marxist and disabled, and I don't like the royal family. I don't like the Daily Mail. Freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. I'm an atheist. I hope I've got a conscience. I know I've got freedom of thought because of half the shit that I think of on a daily basis gets said out loud. I might get arrested. Voting and stand for election. I'm not an egotist. Sorry. A fair trial in civil and criminal matters. Property and peaceful enjoyment of possessions. Okay. Prohibits. Death penalty. Daily wheel. I like that, Brody. I like that. Enough of the population have been vaccinated and boosted. Like we're talking just under 93% of the British populace have had at least 2. and at least one booster. It's something like 70% has had. They require two and at least two boosters, even more. I've had the two main ones plus six boosters because autoimmune diseases. Okay, it also prohibits the death penalty, torture or inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, slavery and forced labour, arbitrary and unlawful detention, discrimination in the enjoyment of the rights and freedoms secured by the Convention, like denying someone the rights in this thing. You're not allowed to do that. Deportation of a state's own nationals or denying them entry and collective deportation of foreigners, even in its most limiting capacity. They're not allowed to do what he wants to. The reasons he's saying that we need to get rid of this, they're one tiny bit of it. And by the way, we already disregarded that one in respects to Shamima Begum. They made her a stateless individual, saying that she had the right to go to another country. No, she didn't. She was born and brought up in Britain. They made that poor lassie, well, not poor lassie. They made her basically stateless. Under the ECHR, they should never have been able to do that, or they should never have done it in the first place. That's why I have no time for my government. Making someone stateless is scumfuckery of the highest order. We should have brought her back here and imprisoned her here in the UK because she was born and brought up here in Britain. She went and done that. She went to join them. They should have just brought her back, tried her here, and locked her up here. The ECHR does not stop the UK from deporting people, apart from in exceptional circumstances. For example, if someone will face torture when they return to their country of origin, they can challenge their removal under Article 3, prohibition of torture. He wants to work with the Afghani government, who is Taliban. These people will be tortured and killed, and that blood will be on the British government's hands if he does. Well, whatever government does that. What the ECHR does is set the minimum human rights standards that governments must adhere to when deporting someone. The ECHR does not give people a right to enter or remain in a country they are not a citizen of. It also does not provide a right to claim asylum. The European Court of Human Rights has previously said that it's up to individual states to control the entry and residence of foreign nationals. Those states have the power to deport people convicted of criminal offences. So, as usual, Raj is chatting shit. No rights Nigel clearly doesn't care about our right to life or a fair trial or right to freedom from torture and slavery. He's clearly willing to give up his own right to those things too. Rejoice, comrades, Red Rust is here. Hi, Red. This is a story about Nigel Farage. I call him Manfrog because he looks like a manfrog. He is scum. I do not like him. And if the polls are to be believed, he's going to be the next Prime Minister at the next general election. I will literally dig the ditch myself. I will, Shanna, don't worry. I'm getting better every day now. As you can tell, I'm not as hoarse, thank God. And don't worry, let me just feel free to drop by. Do not neglect your own stream, sweetie. He seems to forget that because if he gets rid of the ECHR, his rights goes as well. Just because he's a just a white man doesn't really matter. If you get rid of them, whoever replaces you can use it, can do what they wish. He seems to forget that. Or does he think he'll stay in power forevermore? Last time I checked, I don't think he's fucking immortal. Thank fuck. But let's face it, a white, privileged man like Farage is not going to need the ECHR in the same way that so many of us do to protect us from state violence. We already have state violence. We do be living under capitalism, after all. You'd think from the way Manfrog carries on, he just wants to strip foreigners of these rights. But no, make no mistake, he is coming after the rights of every single one of us. Babatunde, strip everyone of the rights. Right, later, strip everyone of the rights over my dead body. I've literally just started. I will be doing well. Thank you for asking, Red. I hate these bastards. The kind of legislation the community can get behind. Earlier this morning, I introduced legislation in my one-person household to call you a grifting treasonous government. At every opportunity, it passed without opposition. You grifting treasonous government. I like good to see that people are having a laugh at Manfrog's expense because obviously we have to. Rule 39 orders are urgent injunctions in which the ECHR can issue in exceptional circumstances when there's an imminent risk of irreparable harm. They are very rarely issued against the UK. This is what prevented the first deportation flights to Rwanda 3 years ago. Since 1980, there have only been 29 UK cases at the European Court that have been related to deportation or extradition. In 16 of these, the court found that the UK did not breach the convention. The deportation or extraditions went ahead. I can't quite remember, but I think most of them probably would have been to send people over to get tried in the States because the extradition treaty from people here getting sent over there is weighted. We have to give them more proof before they'll send someone over to us to get tried. We don't need to show as much to send someone over there, the other side of the Atlantic. It's always been weighted in America's paper. Funny that. Ah, 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 motherfucker. Ah, God damn it. Got it. Holy fuck, that's a big bastard. One fun side effect of one of the many one of the meds that I take, that I've been on for a good few years now, my eyelashes fall out rather easily. And a lot of them, as you can end up in the eyeball. So I have to use this stuff, lubricating eye drops, to help get them out. Mother, ah, boy, fuck. Right. This means that in 45 years, the ECHR has only prevented 13 individuals from being removed from the UK. Do-do-do-do. Man Frog is really barking up the wrong tree. Really. Not only is his nonsense completely racist, yeah, but he wants to waste everyone's time and the country's money by leaving a convention that isn't actually doing what he says it is. He knows this. He fucking knows this. Case in point, you notice that far righter on the panel from tonight. I do not like Matt Goodwin for obvious reasons. Either he is completely brainless, I don't know, I've never met the man, or he thinks the rest of us are. Ding, 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 ding. Once again, he's preying on people's frustrations of years of austerity to lodge a bill which will strip everyone of their human rights. Funny that. You're on a 7-stream streak, darling. I keep on meaning to say in chat to Kev, this has been instituted this during the pandemic, because that's when I joined Twitch, when I started watching people. Technically, I've been a subscriber of Kevin Helena for 2 years, and I'd been in other communities for about 3 years at that point when I started watching Kevin Helena on a regular basis. So these things have been here for at least 4 years, possibly even 5. Okay, next. Find. This is going to be a bit of a long one, but this is my wheelhouse, by the way, everyone. If anyone has any questions connected to this, or if any sort of questions about the Department for Work and Pensions, I am here. I have negotiated with these bastards for decades. Dear God, it's an analysis piece. All right. By the way, that's Caxton House. You can see there. That's the is it in White? I'm assuming it's in Whitehall. So Caxton House is where the Department for Work and Pensions is based. Whenever you hear me say about the ghoul in the Caxton, I'm talking about Pat McFadden, who is the Work and Pensions Secretary for the government. He's Scottish, apparently. He doesn't represent a Scottish constituency because we wouldn't vote for the cunt. The government has dropped its response to the Department for Work and Pensions Pathways to Work consultation. Its responses reveal how chronically ill and disabled people are not buying the government's case for its widespread welfare cuts. Correct. More than this, however, respondents refused to let the Department for Work and Pensions define the terms of its so-called reforms. The chronically ill and disabled community took it up as an opportunity to hit back at the government's scapegoating narratives. I'm here to educate people about these things. In doing so, they exposed how the department's key consultation is little more than a sham dressed up like listening to disabled people. You excluded us to begin with. You deliberately excluded us. That's when Liz Kendall was still in charge, not this ghoul. Don't get me wrong, she was a ghoul as well. But not like Liz Kendall. Get wrecked, 4%. DWP Pathways to Work consultation suddenly dropped out of nowhere when the former Secretary, Liz Kendall, put forward the government's flagship disability green paper. It included a suite of regressive reforms to make it harder for people to claim disability and health-based benefits. As the Canary has previously highlighted, every time it comes up in the Canary, I always read about them because they have two really good reporters on this who are basically reporting all of the stuff connected to benefits, especially disabled benefits. As the Canary has previously highlighted, however, the Green Paper revealed that the government wasn't planning to consult on many of its most oppressive plans. Of course, this included its intention to make sweeping cuts to PIP. I used to be on PIP, I'm not on PIP anymore. My benefit got moved up to here. So I'm on adult disability payment, which is the benefit that gets paid by Holyrood, the Scottish Government. And to the health element of universal credit, I am part of a claim, myself and my super hubby, joint claim for universal credit. He gets more money to look after this. That's the health element that they're talking about here. So we're still kind of scared. We might lose that element from our universal credit claim. I will keep you all informed. Do not worry. Obviously, concerted campaigning from disabled people forced a labour rebellion. Remember that shit show? That was funny. How's it going, Stephen Timms? In some ways, I do kind of a little bit. I do kind of feel for him. But that was an absolute fucking clown show in the House of Commons. So big was the backbench rebellion for these cuts. Was it three or four? Three backbenchers got canned. They lost their whip. One of them is still sitting. Yeah, they did take the whip away from him, but he's still sitting on the back benches. I don't get that, and he's a Scottish MP. All right. And obviously, concerted campaigning from disabled people forced a Labour rebellion that has put a halt to the government's cruel plans around PIP eligibility for now. However, Parliament still passed a money bill with some of its more devastating changes to universal credits, limited capability for work-related activity. I'm getting that. I can't remember. I can't get into the claim. Super Happy gets into both parts. He can get into my account and his own account because you have to do it online. We filled out a form, obviously. We went into the job centre. They totally fucked up my part of it. They conflated me with a younger version of me. I hadn't claimed up. I hadn't been on the benefits that they said I was on for over 20 years. Because of what happened in the past and because of the special rapporteur from the UN, they were encouraged to drop some of the more draconian ones. That's from the coalition years, so 2010 to 2015. Those got dropped and shut down. They got basically, technically, they're still on the system, but there's only two types of people who work in job centres that can gain access to this thing. And what had happened, the Marines who work upstairs in my job centre, so there's only the one floor where us scum go, essentially, and the floor above is where all the little bean counters and that all are. All the assessors are upstairs. We do not see these people. They're a hidden thing. We're not allowed to see them. What they had done, they'd used obviously it's the same national insurance number I've got. You get it when you're 15 years old, by the way. They put in my national insurance number and they went into that section, which they were not allowed to because there was legislation done because the Tories were basically shamed into doing this. Don't get me wrong, the sanctioning still happened, but the way they were treating people like myself who are disabled, that section got walled off essentially. Big brick wall was meant to be put in front of it. But what they've done upstairs, these these people who I do not know, they went into that section to decide for lots of disabled people who are going through the migration from the legacy benefits onto universal credit. They've done that to thousands of people across the UK. I was one of them. They're essentially blind to my Scottish benefit that I was getting. The blinkers can't see it, it doesn't exist. Still disabled. So they went in through that way to deny us the claim, saying that I had to go back onto job seekers. Super Happy would still get money for looking after someone, not me, someone else. Doesn't exist. But this was before I was married as well. So it's my unmarried name, my Christian name. That individual was getting forced back into work. That person hadn't existed for 22 years. 23 years this year, yeah, 22 years last year. That person hadn't existed for 22 years. They were trying to push that person back into work, denying me access to that claim. Make it make sense, chat, please. I was on limited capability for work 22 years ago. Fucking idiots. There's two options here: malice or incompetence. Both are bad. I go for the first one personally, malice, because I am a scummy disabled person who needs to go back. The paper also showed that the Department for Work and Pension would not consult on proposals to scrap the work capability assessment. That is literally sending disabled people like myself to see people who are not necessarily trained and what ails me, my many suite of issues. They should not be doing that. It's slightly different with adult disability payment. You can do it on chat. You can do it through a video, so you don't need to go to an office. Because the office that I would need to go to is 3 different buses for me. I live in the north of Glasgow. The place that I need to get to, I get a bus to the top half of the city centre, one that gets me to halfway down the city centre, and out again a little bit to the office, the building where these assessments take place. It's about 4 miles for me. I don't travel that well. And the first bus that I have to get is every half hour or hour. Ugh. The paper also showed that the Department for Work and Pensions would not consult on proposals to scrap the work capability assessment. The Canary has consistently highlighted how aligning it with PIP assessment could be catastrophic for chronically ill and disabled people. As such, we should first set out why the consultation will likely be a major whitewash. Uh, the fact is, DWP's Pathways to Work consultation appears largely about going through the motions of appearing to listen to disabled people. In reality, the questions are leading and often act like the department has already made up its mind it had. These are decisions that it has also not consulted over. Like I said, they did not speak with disabled activists, disabled campaigners, or disabled advocacy groupings or opposite things. Nevertheless, people made the most of the chance to tell the government what they really thought about its plans. I emailed my MP several times in the lead up to this legislation from last summer. Disabled people made their voices heard even if Labour won't listen. 1. The first thing to note about the consultation is that it drew on an enormous number of responses. In total, 46,354 individuals, 511 charities, and 372 other organisations, advocacy groups, so, which included businesses, industry bodies, and local authorities. So, councils took part. There were also a further, whoa, thing happening, something is happening. Oh, did someone just follow me? Huh, weird. Something just happened there. Did someone just follow me? I have no idea. Okay, I couldn't see it because it's behind where you can see me. It's behind there because I'm numpty. I keep on meaning to move it. There were also a further 746 participants who didn't fall into any of the aforementioned categories or otherwise confirm who they were representing. So that is a lot of people and organisations and advocacy groups. What's straight away good to see is that chronically ill and disabled people made their voices heard. Yes, we did. Around 46%, 21,535, of respondents identified as disabled, living with a health condition, or receiving PIP. About 39%, 17,899, didn't specify, with the remainder, 8,549, not identifying as disabled, living with a health condition, or getting PIP. Ray Joy's comrades, Linton is here. Hi, Linton. What is that? Oh, it's Kairos emote. Hi, Linton. Right. So that's nearly half of the participants identifying as disabled or chronically ill. Obviously, many who didn't identify or provide this data to the DWP may also be disabled or live with chronic health conditions. A large number of these came from two campaigns. 32,788 responses were derived from a single campaign platform alone. Supporting people into work. Here we go again. Ah, I don't go over to Kairos anymore for reasons. Sorry. I do like that emote though. That is a rather fun looking emote. The first question asked respondents, what further steps could the Department for Work and Pensions take to make sure the benefit system supports people to try work without the worry that it may affect their benefit entitlement? Interestingly, only 8,090 participants actually engaged with this question. That might have something to do with the fact that it was an egregiously leading question amid its broader plank of plans to cut people's entitlements. The most common answer, 20.5%, was that the Department for Work and Pension should offer flexible support and benefit adjustment. This appears to refer to the department facilitating trial work periods as well as tapering around earnings. However, perhaps the more significant answer was how respondents felt the government needs to maintain financial support for disabled workers. Obviously, respondents undoubtedly meant benefits like PIP and universal credit, including the limited capability for work. That is the welfare support the government is ironically hell-bent on slashing. Alongside this, though, it seems likely the response also encompasses financial grant-type support, aka schemes like access to work, that gives people things like ergonomic keyboards, screen filters, better seating, foot supports, hearing aids, specialist glasses, things of that nature, money towards better transportation, but money for taxis. So that comes up, all that comes under this umbrella. The vast majority of people who use access to work is mostly, motability. Motability is also part of this, by the way. So that's adapted cars, which the disabled person still has to pay for. That's what a lot of these people get. Once again, the Department for Work and Pensions has been slyly making sweeping unofficial cuts to this as well. They have. So the fact that this was more than 15% of responses, the second highest theme, won't show the government in a good light here. Good. Holy fuck. Like 18 months here? Maybe 2 years? Right. No one. What's more, later questions centred on what support the DWP should fund within access to work. The implication here, of course, is that it wants to reduce the level of support on offer. Let me know if it is a decade, because that seems fucking mental. The question, number 14, positively spins this by suggesting it's about reaching as many people as possible. But the problem with this is that the DWP has been reducing awards. Yes, they have. It appears to be for those who need the most support. In other words, it just means it's likely the scheme won't actually continue to facilitate those with the greatest needs staying in work. Delightful. Employer accountability for disabled workers was also top of the list at 14% of responses. In other words, participants were highlighting that holding employers to account for ableism, workplace inaccessibility, and discrimination should be a top priority for this government. Yes, this is important as it stands. Disabled people disproportionately face low pay and limited progression prospects where jobs do exist. And most notably, employers have made disgustingly few accessible job opportunities available. We are seen as an expense. They're just going to hire the able bodied person before they hire us. There is not enough adaptations any employer can do for me. I get knackered, my joints and um, like especially feet, knees, legs and stuff, they swell up. I get knackered rather easily. Plus, I'm prone to clotting now, which is deeply fucking dangerous. I'm not putting myself at risk. I'm not going back into work. You can't fucking force me. Take all my fucking benefits. I'll just fucking appeal it. Stop taking it. I'm not having it. That is mental. Another key question revolved around the Department for Work and Pensions grueling PIP cuts. Notably, the publication picked this out before delving into the questions. This was because responses over PIP comprised such a considerable number. Obviously, this was significant given the consultation wasn't actually consulting over whether to carry these out, it said. During the course of the consultation, the government announced that it would not take forward the proposed changes to the eligibility criteria of PIP. Although this policy was not consulted on, many respondents raised it in their responses. Legend. Legend. Thank you, Scrappy, for helping Linton. Rejoice, comrades. Resident philosopher is here. Hi, Scrappy. Look, another story about PIP, or disability benefits in general. I hate this government. I really do. The consultation only asked questions about mitigating the impact of the cuts. Don't do them. Need I say more? This included, what support do you think we could provide for those who will lose their PIP entitlement as a result of a new additional requirement to score at least 4 points on one daily living activity? So there's gradations. You can get up to an award of 12 points for answering one question. For the eight, you can get that maximum amount is like 8 points you can get. But there's varying levels. You get graded. Obviously, that's why you can't means test this because no disability can be means tested. I am different from other disabled people. Case in point, this. Unsurprisingly, disabled people called the government out over this right away. Yes, we did. More people answered this question than any other. No surprise. With 12,526 responses. And of those, more than half lambasted Labour's plans to cut PIP eligibility. Crucially, 52% said the DWP should maintain the existing PIP criteria, and many responses pointed out financial, 37%, and mental health impacts, 18% of losing PIP. Obviously, that's pretty major, losing your money. And the mental health impacts of losing your money and getting recognised as being disabled and unable to go back into work. Yeah, I've noticed that as well, Linton. Shut up, man frog. At 52% was the biggest response by a fair margin too. I bet it was. Following that, 37.2% underscored how it would increase financial hardship, and more than a fifth said it would impact on their employment and independence. What's notable here is that none of these answers actually responds to the DWP's question. Instead, disabled respondents clearly took the opportunity to set out their opposition to the PIP cuts more specifically. Mother, oh, give me a minute. Un momento. Comments. No phone. Ah, That's better. Stab myself in the eye again. Yeah. Oh, it's fun when I try to put in my eye drops because my hands shake. I usually kind of stab myself in the eye. Ouch. In refusing to be held to the DWP's framing, they made patently clear that no support could really account for the callous cuts to disabled people's PIP entitlement, taking away our humanity and our financial aid. It's scumfuckery of the highest order. The following question yielded many of the same results. This one asked, how could we improve the experience of the health and care system for people who are claiming PIP who would lose entitlement? How could we improve the experience of the health and care system for people who are claiming PIP? Don't go ahead with the cuts. End of. Thank you. Again, the largest number of responses at 42% out of 8,411 this time came back demanding the government maintain PIP for claimants. Oi, bastards, didn't take away our money. Stop dehumanising us and look after us. Thanks. Half as many, 19%, said the government should increase investment in the NHS. A further 17% wanted more mental health support. That might help. Obviously, these paled in comparison to the sheer number stating in no uncertain terms that the government should scrap its PIP cuts. Another question touched the concept of unemployment insurance. As the Canary has previously highlighted, I've also talked about this as well. This seems to be part of the Labour government's agenda to get rid of the new style employment and support allowance. We noted before how the government's consultation question on this approaches it as if it's already been already a done deal. Notably, it asked, how could we introduce a new unemployment insurance? How long should it last for, and what support should be provided during this time to help people to adjust to changes in their lives and get back into work? Some of us can't go back to work. How clear do we need to get? Oh, it's been a while since someone's picked that one. There's three options here for this one. Technically four. Let me think. We'll get through the story, then I'll have decided. Okay, you know what? I'll do a poll. Ah, Translated, the question is posed as, how can we do this? Don't. Not whether it should, yeah. And lo and behold, respondents weren't buying it either, because we can see right through yous. In particular, the responses showed that some respondents were sceptical about the introduction of unemployment insurance because it was unnecessary or that further development was required, 70%, including those who appeared unsure of what the proposals meant and the intention behind them. They were literally going to reduce the amount of money we were getting and saying, what can we do to get you back into work? Or literally tell us how we can destroy your lives, make your health worse, and possibly unalive you. We know exactly the language. We've seen it before. Some of us studied the history of being disabled in this country. This individual has. So no, fuck off with your eugenics plan. Thanks. That wariness is evidently warranted given it's a vehicle to dismantle some disabled people's vital contribution based out of work benefits. Like if you've paid in a certain amount in national insurance, if you've paid in national insurance is essentially a tax. It gets put in the general taxation pot. You have to reach a certain amount, like you have to have paid in a certain amount to get contribution based. I was on income based because I hadn't reached enough and because disabled. I haven't I haven't worked full time since I was 22, which was 24 years ago. Once more, respondents overwhelmingly called out a problematic feature of this. Specifically, this is the DWP's intention to time limit the new benefit. You'd only be allowed to be on it for a while, and we don't know how long for. So it could have been a couple of months, maybe a couple of years. More than a fifth said that the Department of Work and Pension should make an indefinite benefit. I'm on indefinite now. I don't need to go through a reassessment ever again. Yes, helpful and righteous. No, it fucking isn't. Quite a lot of us disabled people can't go into work. Just saying. And none of you are fucking doctors. And even the doctors that they did have doing these assessments, a lot of them weren't specialists in what a lot of people have. None of them were experts in what I had because my autoimmune diseases are rare and quite debilitating. Of course, this particular aspect is essentially the department's raison d'etre behind the whole idea. Yeah. It wants to replace New Style Employment Support Allowance with unemployment insurance and make it a short-term benefit to, you guessed it, make cost savings. Yay! Coming after us again. 330,000 excess deaths, anyone? Fun. Oh, you're welcome, Andrew. I will be getting onto your video. I will let you know how I get on. Oh, oh, oh. From what Kev was saying, it sounds brilliant. I will leave a comment. Don't you worry. Warning, I am very sarcastic and I do use snark quite a lot. There was plenty of bullshit around the Department for Work and Pensions support conversation. This is effectively the main thing the department has been offering to replace disabled people's PIP entitlement. It's about as nonsense and honestly gaslighting as it sounds. The Green Paper explained how this would focus on disabled people's goals. Basically, my goal is to make sure that my health doesn't rapidly get worse. Again, autoimmune disease. I'm literally suffering from two degenerative diseases. I ain't getting better. I am only going to get worse. Thank you. Act as a gateway to a range of personalised support to help achieve them for anyone who wants it. This support conversation will centre on employment. I ain't going. But in the context of someone's wider health and independent living aspirations. Don't believe yous. Thanks. Because chronically ill and disabled people too ill to work just need to think themselves better. Again, degenerative. What are you not understanding about that word? And getting coaching on how to do that. There is no amount of coaching that's going to fucking help me. Oh God, right. I think I only said that for 2 minutes, didn't I? Oh, I only, yeah. Only me. There we go. A surprising number still responded to this, 10,082. Answers answers ranged from woolly notions of a DWP staff treating disabled people with empathy, respect, and kindness to the rather obvious suggestion that staff should understand various disabilities. One thing it did emphasise, though, is that DWP staff should also understand the nature of fluctuating conditions. Of course, the department has historically not been good on this. Understatement. In a later question, respondents shut down the DWP's idea that these support conversations should be mandatory. Crucially, participants highlighted how conditioning universal credit, including health element, when taking part in these could cause stress for claimants. They would. A significant number followed this by suggesting people with severe disabilities or on limited capability for work should be exempt. Period. Correct. Government says Participants also made perfectly clear to the government that it should centre support around need, not age. This was clear in response to the Department for Work and Pensions' shocking proposal to limit universal credit's health element to those over the age of 22, because apparently people under the age of 22 can be disabled. It's a new one on me. I've been disabled since I was 11 years old, by the way. But apparently, oh no, I wasn't. Respondents had to spell out to the Department for Work and Pensions that this would push young, chronically ill, and disabled people into poverty. So overall, what the government's initial take on all this? The published response stated that, okay, the government is committed to reforming the social security system so that it can better support disabled people and those with health conditions. I don't believe, yes. During the course of the consultation, the government announced that it would not take forward the proposed changes to the eligibility criteria. Good. And that it would await the findings of the Timms review. He's still doing it, by the way. It's going to take him a while before taking further action in this area. It's literally going to take him a couple of years to do this, I think. Where relevant, the review may draw on insights from this consultation to support its work. Oh, God. Work continues to develop policy across the other measures set out in the Green Paper. As part of this work, we are working closely with disabled people, the organisations that represent them, and other experts. After excluding us, thanks, including through the Timms review and our collaboration committees, we are now carefully considering the responses to the consultation. Alongside other evidence, we will share details of our proposals in due course. They will not hide this one under the rug. I will be watching intently to see what happens with the Timms review. Don't try to hush it up or anything. We're all in tears. I've literally been campaigning for this for years. Being a font of knowledge for other disabled people within my family and local community in Clydebank when I first moved down there and up in Perth. It's almost exasperatingly hard to know where to start with this. I try my best to understand what they're saying. You can read between the lines and take a guess because obviously you can. For one, the government painting its current climb down on the PIP cuts as its magnanimous gift to disabled people is nauseatingly galling. But we'll park the fact that it was all really a last minute exercise in saving face from what would have otherwise been a gargantuan government defeat. The backbenches were not happy. What's more, it claims to work with disabled people. No, are more than a little hard to swallow after excluding us to begin with. Just today, its much trumpeted Timms review is looking increasingly like the whitewash the Canary had warned it would be. The Labour Party government, carefully considering these responses, will be little assurance to disabled people it had already shafted with calamitous cuts. While the responses dragged the DWP's plans through the mud, where they deserve to be, there's no guarantee it will take any of this on board. Right. And frankly, it also isn't mandatory to. If the pattern of this Labour government is anything to go by, it's more likely it will co-opt it, in short. It will use it as a monumental token tick box exercise. It will engage in good faith with these responses. That remains to be seen. Yet they won't. But at this point, it seems far from the probable outcome. Ah, oh, there is a clip in this one, so I'll just play that.
For the Palestinians,
oh, the reform! Shame on you! You Zionist slave! You put Zionists before Britain! You prostitute to Zionists!
Question,
no,
you can't
go
answer.
away.
Are you not brave enough
I'm not
anymore?
answering any question. I'm very brave.
Yeah.
But I don't need you coming in doorstepping me. Go back to your demonstration.
It's the public.
And get on with it.
You just came out of Parliament. Why are you not brave enough to speak how you used to speak a few hours ago?
Go away, you discourteous man.
You're the one that's scared.
No, you come in here.
You're the one that can. Don't touch my phone. Oh, Michael, go. How are you?
Have you been invited to this event?
Do I need to be?
Yes.
Is this the privileged event?
Yes, it is.
For what?
And you're not invited, so...
For what? Don't touch my
please.
phone, sir.
No,
That would be
touch
assault.
anything you like. No, please,
If you touch my phone,
don't
that's
disturb our
assault.
guests.
I'm not disturbing any guests.
Yes, you are.
What are you doing with the Reform
Please don't
Party? You're on the
disturb our guests.
Conservative Party. What are you doing with the Reform
Please
Party?
don't disturb our guests. How are you?
But why are you in bed with the Reform Party?
Well, please...
Can you not touch my phone? I asked you
I'll touch
politely.
whatever I like, sir.
You try
Please
again.
get out
You try
of the
again.
way.
You try again.
Please get out of the way.
Get right, Gove. Oh, let's find out now. Okay. The Green Party under Zach Polanski leads both Labour, which is polling at its lowest on record, and the Tories in the latest Westminster voting intention poll conducted by Find Out Now. This makes the Green Party the primary opposition party to the neo-fascist Reform UK and is gaining ground on the static man-frog outfit. Oh my God. Oh, that's the Yuki Wine. Form. Fucking 32%. The Greens' surge comes after the party doubled its membership to 150,000. Damn it, I'm jealous of Kev now having that soundboard. With Polanski performing strongly in recent public appearances. On you go, Zach. The latest poll does not appear to include the new Your Party, which would perform too strongly to be among other at 3% despite more chaos this week. Yeah. Ah, Oh, what? Okay.
The Westminster Government's Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall insists that Britain's welfare system is broken and there's a moral duty to help get long-term sick and disabled people into work. More controversially, she's expected to cut around £6 billion from the benefits bill. It's a plan opposed inside and outside the Labour Party by those fearing it could push hundreds of thousands of people into poverty. But a letter of support today came from the Get Britain Working Group of Labour MPs, which includes the member for Dunfermline and Dollar, Graham Downey. He spoke to us this evening. Graham Downey, why are Labour MPs so keen to cut welfare benefits?
I think, Colin, let's start from the basis of what we're trying to do, and indeed the letter that I signed. We've had a mess left by the SNP.
Don't you dare.
And the Tories, which has seen 8,000 young people not in employment or training in Scotland. 1 in 8 people across the UK, young people across the UK, not in employment and training. 40% of disabled young people in Scotland who are seeking work but may be unable to get into work. That's a huge problem, and one that we've just got to make sure we actually tackle proper reform of the entire system that we have across the UK. We've got to make sure that we're getting people into work. These are after all the people that are going to be the taxpayers of the future, and that's what a reform of a system's got to first and foremost look at.
But you're looking at what will probably be the biggest cuts facing people with disabilities. What benefits do you think should be cut?
Yeah. Rejoice, comrades. Dan Alba is here, and so is Elron Hubbard. Hello, comrades. Welcome. Welcome in. Yeah, it's just a rejig. Yeah, lying prick. Obviously, we know this about her.
Well, I think, to be honest, Colin, we've not seen any packages out from the Department of Work and Pensions
No, but I'm asking
yet.
you, what benefits do you think should be cut?
I think my focus, Colin, is on the benefit system that is not working at the moment, and it has to make sure it works to get people back into work, to get them into apprenticeships, to get them into jobs, to get them into training. And we need to make sure we're working with employers. We need to make sure we're working with unemployed people.
Are you 57, Elron? Wow. So you're only a few years away from they should just leave people like us alone. They can't expect us to go back into work. Get wrecked. Oi, Downey, you're meant to represent the people in Dollar, you dickhead. You're disabled. People are part, I assume. People in Dollar are disabled. We are everywhere, oddly enough. It is scumfuckery of the highest order coming after the most underprivileged and disabled in the community. Just no. Your ghouls get wrecked. I hope you all get fucked in May. I really do. Obviously, you're an MP, so you're safe for the time being. Yeah, seriously, fuck off. Fucking monsters. Monsters.
To make that happen. You know, the clues in the name calling, a Labour government
to
will
be
focus
fair,
on Labour and focus on getting
but
people
if you're working
into
with
work.
employers, you're actually putting them off with the national insurance contribution increases. But you're talking about £6 billion of cuts from the welfare budget.
No.
That's what your government is talking about.
No,
so what benefits do you think should be cut?
This government has not published any figures, Colin. I mean, I'm here to talk about a letter that I signed, which I think absolutely clearly states out what I believe a future benefit system and reform points to. That's the purpose.
You're still not telling me what benefits you think should be cut.
I think, Colin, I'm asked here to talk about why I signed a letter saying what exactly a benefit system should look to, and that's what I've got to do. We've got to reform the benefit system so that it works properly for people in Scotland and across the UK.
Our one, Dan, it gets administered up here, obviously, thank God for that one. They can't directly go for it. They can't directly go for our one. But what can happen is that they do some fuckwittery with the block that this fuck bad formula. I can't find it. They can bugger about with it and force the government, the SNP government up here, to try and force it to change its priorities to punish people like us. Get wrecked, Graham. Seriously. By the way, the latest poll's got the Fife going Lib Dem. Weird. You can think of like Fife and Glasgow Extension. For anyone either down in England, in Wales, or out of the UK entirely, you can think of like Glasgow and Fife as like side in the wheel fucking Labour areas. We were for decades. Perth was kind of Tory, kind of Labour, but it's solidly SNP. The current First Minister, John Swinney, he represents my home city of Perth. So it's been SNP since the 90s, 93, 92. So it's been SNP for 30 years, essentially. Yeah, East Lothian too. Think industrial heartland area, essentially, just like St Wales and parts of Northern England and stuff. They were Labour heartlands, essentially. So the Kingdom of Fife changing to Lib Dem is a bit of a weird one. That's odd polling. I don't know how that's going to fucking happen. But time will tell. Obviously, the election's in May. I just hope Labour get fucking brutalised. They fucking deserve it. Hope you all lose your deposits. He's fine. He's not an MSP. He is an MP. Hence down Westminster.
And right now, no one in Scotland, no one in the UK thinks that the benefit system we have at the moment works. It doesn't support people.
Yeah, it punishes people too much. It doesn't work. He's predicting that. But the way he's saying it doesn't work is different from the way I'm saying it doesn't work. Same wording, different meaning. I'll literally talk about this until I'm blue in the face. And depending on how cold that gets, that might happen quite quickly. Yeah. Well said, Elron.
Into employment, it doesn't support those who are unable to work correctly, and fundamentally that's what we've got to change. It may well take radical changes to do that, but that's what a government's got to be focused on.
Right, let's come back to your letter to the DWP Secretary Liz Kendall. Now you say in that those who can't work should be treated with compassion and respect. How is cutting their benefits treating them with compassion and respect?
Well, Colin, as the letter states, that what I believe is that people should be both supported and treated with compassion and with respect.
So how is cutting their benefits doing that?
Well, there's no such proposal, Colin. I've not seen that's been a leak that I think you're referring to over the weekend. And I say I'm on here to talk about what is in the letter that I do absolutely support.
So are you opposed to cutting benefits then?
I'm in favour of what is in that letter, Colin, an actual proper reform of the benefit system so that it works to get people back into employment and training, works to make sure that those who are currently out of work but seeking work can be supported in that endeavour, and making sure that we have a country that properly and a benefit system that properly works for everyone. That's got to be the function of a benefit system in any country, surely. I mean, we're one of the few countries that have not yet recovered from the pandemic when it comes to productivity. We've got an SNP government in Scotland.
Some benefits have been devolved, obviously, thank God for that one. Not all of them. Not all of them have been devolved, so it's kind of devolved and kind of not devolved. Plus, we're still at the mercy of the fucking bandit formula. Yep. 330,000 excess deaths, anyone? I am not going back to that. Do not test me. Back then, with doing this interview with Kendall, and now with Julius Glaswegian, I cannot go back into work. How many different ways to get debt? I need to say this to you, fucking bastards. Degenerative diseases. Plus, I'm at risk of forming blood clots. I am not going to literally kill myself going back into work. Get wrecked, you fucking monsters.
Hang on a sec. Graham Downey, hang on a sec. Are you talking yourself into becoming one of the potential Labour rebels here?
I'm just talking about the letter that I've signed, Colin. That's what I believe is what's in that letter.
Well, campaigners point out that life costs more for disabled people. Do you accept that?
I think that is true. I think we've got to make sure we're...
On average, just under £2,000 extra a month. I'm lucky. I've got my super hubby, plus I've got my mum, and my sister helps me as well. She's a community nurse, by the way, as I keep on saying. I've got a great support network around me. I've got my family take such good care of me. And if I need any supports or anything, I either say to Super Hubby, all right, on you go. This one I've killed it because I need like with supports and knee braces and shit like that. So he goes out and buys some boots or Superdrug or other shops. Or if we're a little bit tight, I call up mum saying, this support, this brace, I've basically worn it to fuck. Says, okay, right, you're allergic to neoprene, aren't you? Yes. What do you need? The last one that I needed to get was for my wrist. I ordered one from Amazon, which was a fiver. It is pink. It is somewhere in Northern, somewhere. It does quite well. But for my right wrist, the worst one, said, right, I've worn this one out in 2 years. And I sent her a photo of it, this one. Okay, I'll go and get it. And she goes and buys it for me because my mum is beast and tries to help me as much as she can. So what she does is she orders it online and I go and collect it, or Super Hubby goes and collects it from usually the one on Sauchiehall Street. So that's one of the larger booths in Glasgow. He goes in and gets it for me. Mum pays, but he goes and gets it. Okay, there you go. You can collect it in 3 hours. This is good like that. But she orders a lot of her stuff as well on her Boots app. These people are monsters. They want to cut some of the funding for people like me. And if I can't get these supports, which I need when I go out of the house, or if I need a new walking stick, in a pinch, if I need to, because foot or ankle swelling up or knee refusing to cooperate, I've got a pair of crutches which are just sitting over there next to the living room door. That's fun. That usually does in my wrist because of the way I hold it and how real my bones are. So sometimes I have to use fucking crutches. That's fun. What? Correct, Elron. I can be your family if you want. If you can, if you can move up here, I would highly recommend it. Rejoice, comrades! The ever awesome Australian anarchist story girl is here. What's your Gemma? How's it going, darling? Look, I covered benefit. I'm covering some benefits tonight before we're moving on. And new YouTuber that we didn't know about lurking in Kev's chat all along, so we're going to be watching his video next. So I'm currently here sleeking Liz Kendall in Ghoulish Glaswegian because he is a fucking cunt. Yeah, I'll unmod you. Unmod. No problem. Back when I first started, I was just modding everyone to make sure that I was well protected. But I'm good. Don't you worry. I've got people to help me. Plus, I've got all my mod controls back from they vanished for some strange reason. I don't know if that was anything to do with either Streamlabs or Twitch or something. I've got all my mods for myself to do to deal with idiots that come in. You're welcome. Don't worry. If anyone wants to be a mod, just say I'm well covered. I've got Shanna and I've got Brody as well, and obviously Gemma. Are you okay being mod? Sorry, girl. Liz Kendall has been like this for years, by the way. I'll see if I can find a video of her being a bitch. She literally said this years ago. Was she in Ed's shadow cabinet? I can't remember. Oh, oh yeah, I'm surviving. Don't you worry. They will not silence me. They've tried for many years to silence me. You're collecting mod badges. Again, if you don't want to be mod or anything, Dan, just let me know.
Supporting disabled people. If someone is disabled and wants to work, I say 40% of young disabled people in Scotland.
Don't cut access to work. Do not cut the additional support needs that disabled people who are in work and need these things. Don't cut that funding. Then the disabled people who already have jobs can stay in the job. That might be an idea, Graham. Just saying. I don't know if you're actually in the department as a junior minister. Give me a minute. I will check. Hey, this is the where's the name? Not Graham Souness. He's a year younger than. Oh fucking hell! So he's the member of Parliament for Dunfermline and Dollar. Does he have a shadow position? No, he doesn't have a shadow position. Now he's just an MP. I cannot remember if there's any Scots in the Department for Work and Pensions. Sword. I was a fencer and I done kendo and I knew how to do it. Katana. I did try two-handed, but fuck that, they're heavy bastards. Are you away, Elron? You look after yourself. Alright? Feel free to come back. Or come back anytime you wish. And let us know. We will formulate plans to deal with your prick of an MP. By the way, there's no such thing as a safe Labour seat, Elron, so don't worry, she might get voted out, and with any fucking luck, Green, they aren't monsters.
Are currently seeking employment and are unable to find it. It's not right, surely, that we're not supporting those people properly. For someone that is unable to work, of course we've got to support them fully.
They're also warning that cutting disability benefits would push hundreds of thousands of people with disabilities into poverty.
Well, of course I don't support that either, Colin. As I say, this is about making sure we're supporting those who cannot work correctly and properly, and it's about supporting those who wish to work, making sure they can get back into full-time employment. I mean, that's, as I say, the clue is in the name of what the Labour Party is. It's to support people who want to get into work in the best way that we possibly can.
So just to be clear, are you telling...
It's to represent, not that your fucking party leader and the current Prime Minister know this, obviously because he literally said that he's a Tory. The founder of your party was Scottish, and he'll be spinning in his grave with what's happened to his Labour Party now. You're not representing working people. You're literally bought and paid for by fucking those capitalist bastards in the settler colonial entity. And you're confirmed Atlanticists. I don't know about you personally, but most of the people in your fucking cabinet are. They're Atlanticists. Britain America Project, anyone? You do not represent the working class or the disabled or the lower classes anymore. You do not. You're Tory scum now. Yes, he will be spinning in his grave. Mind you, it's so John Smith. I'm surprised you can't see the sea boiling around Iona. By the way, the previous Labour leader, he was Scottish. He got buried on Iona because he was a devout Catholic. You have to apply for that, by the way. So he's buried on there. He's probably spinning in his grave as well. Because he died rather young and tragically, unfortunately. That's where we get Blair from, by the way, after he passed. And Tony and Gordon clashed out amongst each other. So Gordon became Chancellor and Blair became the leader. Blah. Lying two-faced fucking cunt. War criminal. Maybe. You're getting lots of these talking points from the Tony Blair Institute as well, Graham. How would I know that? I read up on yous all. I have to know how to counter yous after all.
Telling me tonight then that you wouldn't support any cuts to disability benefits?
What I'm saying, Colin, is we'll see what proposals come out from the DWP. The principles outlined in that letter are the ones that I support, and those are the ones that I think this Labour government should be looking to. That's all that I'm stating.
So at the moment you can't tell me that you would oppose benefit cuts, particularly for people with disabilities?
I think what I can tell you at the moment, Colin, is I support a benefit system that helps people get into work. I think that's what we need to have a conversation about, rather than just making this about one narrow part of what that
Well,
may
this
or may
can't
not
go
be.
back
We've
into
got to
the
make sure the
work.
benefit
Liam, you
system works. And
absolute
for the last
fucking
17
bastard.
years under the SNP and the Tories, it has not worked. People want to see radical reform. This Labour government was elected on a programme of change. That does include changing the benefit system to make sure it helps more people, and that's what I want to see this Labour government doing.
But this all sounds a bit like, or the debate around this all sounds a bit like where we were just over a year ago with the Tories talking about a sick note culture and talking about people as scroungers and skivers. Is that how you see people on benefits?
No, absolutely not. People who are on benefits, I believe the overwhelming majority of people who are on benefits want to work. They want to get back into work. That gives them a way to pay their bills better. It makes a
Citation needed. Evidence, please, Graham. Evidence. I'm disabled. I can't go back into work. Have you asked me? No, you excluded me, and people like me from the consultation, by the way. Literally, just a couple of weeks before this interview, by the way. We were excluded because we do not deserve our right to speak about how our lives actually are and how bad our health is and what disabilities and health issues we've got. You literally sidelined us. I will not stand for it.
reduces the burden on the taxpayer. It gives them a dignity and a purpose that I think they want. That's how we should be treating people who are unemployed and on benefits. They want to work. Let's help them do that.
And is this all just about making cuts in one sector to pay for increase in defence spending elsewhere?
No, absolutely not, Colin. This is about making sure we have a proper and radical reform of the benefit system so that it works properly for Scotland and for the rest of the UK.
Graham Downey, thanks for joining us in Scotland tonight.
Thanks, Colin.
Fuck off. Thanks. Okay, Andrew Luke. No, no, no. It got posted in Kev's Discord, I believe. Give me a minute. Right. Interesting content. Uh, uh, Was motion with it? Ah!
On tonight's show, the revenants of Reform UK, the haunting of GB News, aliens, isolation, and the shivers in the sky. Hi, I'm Andrew Luke and welcome to Screen Cleaner. This is the first of a semi-regular series designed to enlighten, entertain, and anger. And because this
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to do as much as I can, which probably isn't that much. Being disabled, kind of. Mm. Okay, where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Oh my God! Yes! Ah, yay! I'll get random Scottish history as well. Why not? Oh my God! Yeah.
falls around Halloween, I'll be trying to spook the bejesus out of you as well. There are guest contributors who will talk about the hilarity they have creeping around horror culture, and they'll break up my ridiculous looks and bird-like voice. This week I've been looking at the UK Parliament's Register of Members' Interests. This is where the elected are expected to report donations. Okay, Morgan? It's fascinating insights. Many MPs can't wait for Halloween. Much like the high street, they want to move on to Christmas and gifting straight away. Looking at how each MP differently values the cost of the same dinner they've been given works as a sort of restaurant review listing.
Hey, as long as they put bread on the table, I didn't ask questions. Well, I've got some questions. How about some butter with that bread? And maybe a nice chunk of ham?
I've long wanted to work as a writer, producer in television, and there's a lot of details on the budget for these. One TV station is devoted to 24/7 live horror, no matter the season, no matter the cost. TV News regularly brings aboard privately educated bog beast Esther McVeigh. McVeigh used to present Friday and Saturday blood breakfast shows with her husband, who never took the makeup off after appearing in The Walking Dead. Their show was modelled on ITV's Richard and Judy, though more dickhead and dupey.
Good morning. You're watching and listening to GB News. This is Saturday Morning with Esther and Phil.
We've got a fantastic show lined up for you today. We'll be discussing blasphemous bread, COVID vaccine damages, and whether babies should be allowed into the Houses of Parliament.
All of that plus much more after your latest headlines with Ray.
Philip Davies is a man who is aggressively misogynistic, racist, homophobic, and a disabled basher. I think it's a plan the next revision of the Bible has his name in place of Satan's. While he was a Tory MP, Pip Davies accrued over £80,000 from gambling lobbies. It was rumoured he put a tenth of that on a bet he'd lose his seat in Shipley, West Yorkshire. There's likely no truth in this rumour. He did lose a seat, although it's curious that Ladbrokes aren't offering any kind of odds on whether or not he'll try to put his penis inside a Brighton seagull tomorrow. Nowadays, Aunt Diamond mans Esther and Philip's couch, a diamond in the shit, if you will. Still, McVeigh regularly haunts G-Babies and other TV channels and the internet. A few years ago, she got pulled up for tweeting vitriol at Wirral Labour during a Hillsborough disaster memorial service. Her ectoplasm dripped in the Commons when she was found to have misled Parliament over the universal credit rollout. And she'd gone to lead Richie Rishi's anti-woke brigade and vowed to introduce a law to ban civil servants from wearing rainbow lanyards. TV News have paid Esther £30,000 in the last year. The costume department at the channel is kept busy by Labour MP Barry Gardner. Gardner is GBB's straight man, which doesn't mean much, doesn't mean anything really. It's a channel so dense that the light bending around it is often confused with the light at the end of the tunnel you see when you have a near-death experience. As an MP, Barry Gardner has taken $500,000 thereabouts from Chinese solicitors Christine Lee and Co.
Can you explain that? Well, I'll...
And in January 2022, MI5 declared Gardner was a covert agent for the Chinese Communist Party.
Come on, tell me.
And you know that's nonsense.
It is not.
Let's start off talking about India and China, okay? The largest decarbonisation program in the world is happening in China, okay?
Well, you would say that.
Presumably that's why he got paid twice as much as Esther McVeigh, £7,660 last year. But GBN's main broadcast invocation is the Forum UK. Last year, ghastly Banshee Nightmare Channel spent over $500,000 hiring actors to recreate the peak of Hammer. Wank Sheep 30p Lee Anderson, multi-millionaire, took in £100,000 for his real-world show, playing an aging puck. What a way to spend Friday night. Churchgoers will be walking backwards from multi-millionaire Richard Tice's Sunday sermon, though the Register of Interests doesn't record how much Blue Mold Jim Davidson is paid. Maybe we'll never know, as often Tice's cash makes its way to secretive offshore bank trusts. The headliner, of course, is multi-millionaire Nigel Farage. Lord Whore, not a lord working as a whore, has in excess of 4,300 videos on their YouTube channel. Farage is sometimes confused with Dominar Rigel from Farscape. Both are greedy, lying, cheating, arrogant racists, but Rigel at least has a heart and some courage. Last year, GB News paid Bully Ugliosi £429,000, although the New World puts that figure at £511,000. Farage and his party draw their power and income directly from the media. He made around 1.2 million in the last year from media and speaking arrangements alone. And we'll go into that more later in the show. Toadface's ex-buddy, multi-millionaire Rupert Lowe, was paid a significant £1,310 by GB News. Emerging from his basement a few months ago, Lowe reported to dead Twitter of illegal migrants off the Norfolk coast. Dinghies coming into Great Yarmouth right now! This triggered a huge number of urgent complaints to the Coast Guard. They discovered the boats were record-breaking ex-services, charity rowers, fundraising for motor neuron disease. Sometimes the jokes write themselves. Rupert Lowe was seen as Farage's chief rival in Lukewarm UK, yelling, "He's not the Messiah," and would be drummed out of the party by the rest of GB News' cast yelling, "They're all ganging up on me. An older boy at Reform pushed me down a hill. Farage is an alien trying to isolate me." That's a contrived segue to talk about Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation is a 2014 survival horror game. Last year, producers Creative Assembly announced that a sequel was in development. Here's friend of the channel, Simon Hotchkiss Rogers, to talk about his love for the game and how the Alien IP flexes its fan service across multiple genres.
Horror video games have become more accessible over the last 2 decades than they ever have been before. What was once a low-selling niche genre now sees a player base in its millions. And a lot of those players are being introduced to horror for the very first time when they see big franchise names such as Alien. One of the finest examples of horror ever seen in the video game format, in my opinion, is Alien Isolation, a game that acts as a canonical sequel to the original movie by Ridley Scott and that ties seamlessly to it, and also to the comics that expand the movie and game's lore, so much so it even found its way to having its very own prequel comic telling the events leading up to Alien Isolation in dramatic format. The game takes place a few years after the original movie, and a now adult Amanda Ripley has heard rumblings about the events surrounding her mother, Ellen, and she wants to find out as much as she can. Over the next 20 hours plus, players are exposed to what it is like to be stalked, hunted, and quite frequently succumb to the onslaught of an unstoppable enemy, and a company that will do anything to get its hands on a creature that has shaped so very much of modern horror. The game was made with a huge amount of passion and love by Creative Assembly, a multi-award BAFTA-winning studio based in Leeds in the north of the United Kingdom, and it was actually their very first foray into the horror genre. They went so far as to trawl through terabyte upon terabyte of original imagery from behind the scenes of Ridley Scott's movie, the concepts, the behind-the-scenes backdrops, photos, blueprints, you name it. And they even went further by hiring the original orchestra that created the score for Ridley Scott's movie, asking them to write new music that fit perfectly alongside that movie for the video game. They went and hired the original cast members, Yaphet Kotto, Tom Skerritt, Veronica Cartwright, and the legendary Sigourney Weaver, in order to reprise their roles and record a wealth of vocal performances for both in-game character appearances, but also audio logs that act as a collectible for the player throughout their journey. They're hidden pretty well, to be honest, and also expand the lore within the whole Alien franchise as each one is picked up. Alien Isolation in itself is a perfect organism in so much that it doesn't just exist as an incredible piece of horror gaming for those that have been fans of gaming already. It brings in new players that have never really played games like this before, but that wish to experience the expanded story of the Alien franchise. It introduces gamers that were maybe too young to have seen the movie and draws them into a story that absolutely holds its own without needing any prior introduction. It's a game that should serve as an example to other studios and developers out there. A solid, single-player game that doesn't need to be held up by additional subscriptions, limited time events, co-op campaigns, or anything such. Horror gaming has really evolved from being something that was once sneered at by many and played in mom's basement. It now introduces people that may have never found their way to a particular movie or franchise, and it turns them quickly into fans, bringing an expanded fan base to franchises that are nearly 50 years old, with their storied lore, the movies, games, and comics, along with a huge pile of merchandise. Not only keep these franchises fresh in the minds of all fans, they also constantly keep the story alive, and studios wanting to further that story with a wealth of content, more merchandise, and of course, money.
Right around there. You're gonna have to be careful. Right!
Have you ever wondered how much a guest gets paid on BBC Panel's show Have I Got News For You? The answer is £2,000 from their budget. That's according to Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey, declaring it to Parliament after his role in December 2024's show. There's a decent nickel and silver to be made for politicians when it comes to what the media are prepared to pay from their budget. The Dennis Reynolds of politics on British television is glassy-eyed death walker Fiona Bruce. Question Time is one of the key TV shows for political nerds. Grotbags Castle typically has on the same formula of guests. A faded railway sign overgrown with brush, Nasher from the Beano but drawn by artificial intelligence badly.
That is a very bad thing. It's a bad thing for the economy. It's a bad thing.
Winner of the local eye-rolling championship. Sometimes she even talks to humans. And an honest-to-God ping-pong prick.
Matthew Syed, the former table tennis champion turned writer and broadcaster. He once ran for Labour, but has just come out as a Conservative supporter.
Look, understanding and accepting transgendered people is easy compared to trans schizoid politic dickhead. Pure jump the sharkery. Game of Thrones final episode vibes. This week's production had the orientation of Wile E. Coyote after having been hit by rush hour. Regular venue Swindon hosted Futurama's Keith Croker, Dame JP Morgan Chase, The Little Picture Show, and 6 opened litre bottles of Tesco vodka from the bins. Last year, Fiona Bruce's production team spent at least £3,268, 3/4 of that going to 4 Labour MPs, the rest split evenly between 2 Greens and a Lib Dem. There's no 2024 to 2025 declarations from the Conservative Party for fees, not even for taxi costs. This is because Fiona has set up a travelling Tories hostel inside the studios and takes care of costs of their 12-bed mixed dorms, ordinarily £12 per night. Any Questions is the BBC radio equivalent, and over the years it's been broadcast from schools, museums and prisons, and a synagogue. Records show the producers spent almost £2,400, and this seems disproportionately high for what ostensibly could have been done with 8 telephone calls. Emily Thornberry had the decency to donate her £400 to charity. The data around Any Questions is similar to Question Time. No Conservative declarations. Well, to be fair, they are triggered by talk of prisons. And it's the same names over and over again. Labour's James Murray, Lib Dem Daisy Cooper, and the Greens' Ellie Chowns, twice. Cooper and Chowns declared taxi fares from appearing on Newsnight. Newsnight is a weekday 30-minute show coasting on its prior reputation as a home of special investigative journalism. An attempt at cheeky comic coziness in BBC style, coming over like surgery without anaesthetic and a strong whiff of cleaning fluids. Would you look at that backdrop too? It looks like a latter-day legion of Guy Fawkes are getting to work with the Firelighters. Newsnight has 3 rotating hosts. This episode with Shortly Matt Shorley, interviewing know-it-alls, accentuating their vials. Wrong-wing columnists from the sort of newspapers that are adequately paying out wrong-wing MPs, so it becomes a kind of journalism economy. At the time of me recording this at the end of October, only Cooper and Chowns have declared income from Newsnight. Daisy Cooper asked for £92 and Ellie Chowns £46 for taxis to take them to the studio. Cooper's also acknowledging our cab fare of £54 from the Laura Kuenssberg show. Again, no receipts from Conservative Party MPs on Kuenssberg. Maybe they're paying out of their own pocket, those masters of altruism. Undeclared remuneration is illegal. Or maybe they're just as late as a dodo. Another name in the media bubble is Green Party's Carla Denyer. She gave £1,800 from an ITV game show appearance to charity and got £800 from 2 other ITV slots. Parliamentary records show ITV don't shell out much. No Conservative has ever appeared on or benefited from ITV in the last year, according to the Register. But of course, the country is aware just how much the channel feature politicians. It is very rare for there not to be a money trail pointing to that. There are more disappearances of Tory MPs on the Register than your average Colombian death squad. Gifting is also big business, with media broadcasters shelling out more than you'd expect. Starting with the BBC, Denyer got £212 to have dinner and watch a film premiere. Scottish Liberal MP Christine Jardine, already charging £550 for a radio show, got another £64 for a briefing dinner. Labour's Tom Rutland took payments to enjoy the proms and watch Wimbledon. No, the tennis match didn't take place at the proms. That's 2 separate leisure experiences valued at £240 each. Meanwhile, his Labour colleague Maya Ellis was gifted a £300 hospitality ticket to Radio 2 in the Park. I learned it was quite a large park, and there were a few other radio stations turned out, as well as some big musicians. Channel 4's big payouts come through VIP tickets to the BAFTA Awards, tickets which media giants gift like Christmas socks. Last year, 4 paid out the value of about £6,000 between 3 MPs. Half the value amount went to Tory Saqib Bhatti, Brexiteer and Liz Truss fanboy. Perhaps he was there to get the horror award for 45 days later. Sky News have also paid for BAFTA seats, £900 to consultancy lobbyist Gregor Poynton MP. They've shelled out for Wembley tickets, tickets to the Oval Cricket Grounds, a gift to James Frith for something undisclosed, but it's not very thrifty. Emily Thornberry took £900 for a 1-hour podcast. What? Jesus, a 1-hour podcast appearance? Good God. And their highest paid declaring MP is Jess Phillips. However, she has said she donated her almost £2,500 payments from appearances to charity. Look, I'd like to finish my dinner, but paid for by the good folks at patreon.com/Andy Luke. So why don't you go and watch my good friend Jenny Eales talking about exactly why a certain Scottish movie should be left off everyone's watch lists.
I'm here to talk about a movie, and it is not to recommend that you watch this movie. It is a warning to stay away from this movie. Do not waste your time with it. In 2012, a movie was released called Sonny, Flesh of Man. Now, I discovered this because I have been researching cannibalism in Scottish history this year for my own Halloween episode. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have all my friends join me and watch this movie with me? What can go wrong? A horror based on the myth and legend that is Sonny being Scotland's very own West Coast cannibal. We watched it, and I squirmed throughout it. The lead actor is David Heyman, who's a known actor. So the very idea that he read this one and thought, this is a movie for me, this is the one I want to be the leading man of, baffles me. So I watched this through Amazon with my friends. And so it was to Amazon I went with my review. It's entitled More Black Cab, Please, with a 1-star rating. I wrote, I'm surprised David Heyman agreed to be part of this. It's almost unbelievable that it was funded at all. Was the script read by anyone prior to filming beginning? Dialogue came across forced and unnatural. There was little to no character development, meaning it was difficult to care what happened to any of them. So many scenes had me repeating, no, over and over again. Not in a horrified way, more in a disbelieving sense. Viewers are almost certainly left wanting to have seen more of the Black Cab, as it was the best character in the thing. The storyline of this movie hangs together so loosely as to be almost indecipherable from moment to moment. The main revelation comes from a journalist who realizes that a black cab is involved in the disappearances and murders of certain people. Does he look in the city for this black cab? No. Somehow he finds himself up in the hills of Scotland, because where else do black cabs live? The scenes with David Heyman and the captured woman came across as if they were written by an incel teenager who harboured fantasies of what it might be like to have a captured woman all to himself and completely in their control. It was just the most skin-crawlingly cringe-worthy scenes I have ever sat through. It was akin to watching sex scenes appear randomly and unprompted while sitting watching a film with your parents. I could not apologise strongly or often enough to those who sat through this movie with me. Please heed my warning. Do not watch this shit show of a horror movie. There's nothing horrific about it. There's nothing scary about it. There's too many confusing, disjointed patches of narrative to attempt to string together in your head to really soak in the ambience and atmosphere that they were presumably trying to go for. Please, if you want to laugh, don't watch it. Just read the reviews and have a happy Halloween from Random Scottish History.
Thanks, Jenny. You can support her work at patreon.com/Random Scottish History. Do so and she'll send you nice things like pens, stamps and a torch you can use when the nation's lighting goes down, like it inevitably will. Alternatively, you can keep lit by embracing the vibrant lights of a music festival. Gifting tickets for MPs and their friends is one of the ways Google tries to court lonely hearts in Parliament. Tories Nusrat Ghani and Dame Caroline got tickets valued together at £4,500. These were for entries to the Brit Awards and Glastonbury tickets. 6 Labour MPs received tickets as Glastonbury guests of YouTube: Dan Aldrich, Chris Curtis, Leigh Ingham, Steve Race, Jake Richards and Fred Thomas. A total worth, they say, of £16,764. God, I bet the YouTube tent is a lot of fun. YouTube tried the same trick last year when Jonathan Reynolds accepted £3,000 worth of value in hospitality. Shortly after that, Labour dropped a proposed tax of 10% on Google. The only time I want to see these storm-right fuckwits near a tent at Glastonbury is covered in mud and shit with Jeremy Corbyn on the pyramid stage. Google also run an AI parliamentary scheme, a presentation, networking and dinner event, valued around £427 a head for 4 Tories and 3 Red Tories. One of these wined and dined, Helen Whately, recently appeared on Question Time.
What do the panel think about the rate of adoption of AI within our public services, and how can we do more there to drive forward productivity so we don't need to push up taxes?
Well, if you'll forgive me, I'm going to park AI for the moment because I have a feeling we might come to that later, but thank you.
Oh shit. Well, turn the light out and pretend like there's nobody here. Ash Sarkar outlining the dehumanising activity of the technology.
AI is going to cure cancer, and now he's saying, don't worry, you can have sex with the robot. And I think that tells you something about the direction that this is going in.
It's interesting to watch Whately's reactions.
The example that the lady gave of someone going on a date to find out that the person they'd been chatting to had been using ChatGPT for all their talking points, that's a result of the insecurity of, well, what if this person doesn't like me? Who then design these platforms which bit by bit chip away at what it means for us to be human, because it exploits our insecurities.
Tellingly, the director never cuts to Whately while journalist Matthew Syed is delivering transparent warnings about AI's neutron bomb-like power. Whately is quick to extol the virtues of this.
An opportunity for us as a country, for instance, to increase our productivity in a way that we have struggled for years and years and years to improve our productivity, and on that our growth depends.
Whose fault's that, Helen? Austerity never fucking works, by the way. You weren't in cabinet when austerity was happening, by the way. Just saying. I'm glad your party is dying. Long time coming, we think.
And people's prospect of people having a better standard of living. Care, like cures for cancer, much earlier detection of.
She frames her arguments around the idea of children and young people being able to critically think about the results AI gives, forgetting to mention that the little nippers haven't been privately educated about it in the way that she was by Google Core over a 5-star meal and an open bar tab. If you're seeing Screen Cleaner later than it was to go out, a likely suspect is YouTube. The platform, as a standard, employs AI to enact copyright blocks on edits which are legally protected. And it's something that this channel has suffered from on numerous occasions, with reviews of relatively innocuous episodes of Doctor Who, defined as election advertising in the United States, which is just going to make me try twice as hard. But what about that old tried and tested method of income for MPs, the book? It's time for a truly terrific top-of-the-text reader rundown of money for monographic paperbacks from Parliament for dull fucks. Sorry, Mark Francois. Everyone knows Amazon self-publishing pays squat. No trust placements either for Andrew Mitchell, Rachel Reeves and Nat Shah, failing to write out their income. At number 12 is Keep Chicken Starmer on author's licence collection royalties at £636. Labour's swivel-eyed loon Yvette Cooper is up from the starboard £200. There's nearly £3,000 between Yvette and Nick Thomas Simmons in at number 10. Cafelli's Christopher Evans bangs him out at Bloomsbury to £4,734. And in at number 8, with his 8th book and breaking the Labour streak, is Jesse Norman with his Badenoch Big Society One Nation bullshit. And at number 7, Liam Byrne, not the Irish criminal, just an offensive English office control freak, investigated bullying, mighty xenophobe, and proven misuser of public funds. None of that stopped the stinky Santaran earning $8,650 from his 11 books. At 786 average, that's not much volume. Local Radio LBC have paid out a heft of stock shock jock MP MCs. £1,000 each to Ed Davey and Jeremy Hunt, £2,000 to Emily Thornbury, and £4,250 to Suella Braverman, a woman who understands how to make ears bleed and damns any law that prevents that. Apparently LBC also have to pay royalties to Corbyn every time James O'Brien breaks out in tears.
Jeremy Corbyn today will talk about a customs union but not the customs union, a bespoke deal. He may raise the spectres of Switzerland and Norway without actually acknowledging fully that they're in the single market, and he doesn't want to be. For reasons that remain fairly opaque, you have now a competition to see who can be most confused and confusing.
Reform are a party pretty much created by media and notions of celebrity. Essentially an illusion, something which doesn't exist, not until a summoning of dark forces, as you might with a particularly stubborn poo. Their new chairman, David Bull, was previously the host of Britain's Most Haunted.
We lift the lid. Well, already tonight, Derek seems to have picked up on this big accident.
Derek Akora referenced there, a seance spoofer and good friend of Bull, publicly exposed as a grifter.
Area may well have been recently filled, which means this could be our chamber.
Chamber pot, yeah.
Beasts are said to emanate from that hill.
Bull by name, Bull by nature. Most Haunted is your typical paranormal reality show, with a predatory approach to the naive and the vulnerable. In this clip, the new Reform Party chairman reports his suburban investigations to Richard Madley. Not quite a litmus test for mental stability himself.
And I knew someone was in my car.
Yes, it was you vacuous shill.
So I stopped the car in the middle of the wood, got into the boot, opened the boot, couldn't find any way.
And he could have climbed in and locked himself in just to be safe.
Got back into the car, drove really fast to the hotel.
The asylum seeker and migrant holiday inn. Yeah, I know it.
Derek Akora, who was the paranormal medium at that time.
Derek Akora. Yeah, go on.
And he said, your grandmother is with you.
No, Derek, that's the barmaid, Lise Karen.
So I was like, okay.
Are you drunk on half a pint?
And then he changed facially.
And you found you felt the same strong attraction as you did for David Boreanaz.
And then he jumped on me and tried to strangle me.
Yeah, I know how he feels.
And I'm not kidding, I had bouncers in those days, and they pulled the bouncers off. And then I went to bed.
The real money is in writing for digital media, though, and it's something Reform have been quick to realise. Dead Twitter have paid out £67,000 to the horror show, presumably for clickbait. God, doesn't Lee Anderson look like disgraced Prince Nonce Andrew? Weirdly, Farage did far less well than his ex-buddy Rupert Lowe, closer friend, ex-his owner Elon Musk. I'm not sure why they're standing in front of a painting of Dirk Benedict. Lowe is also a supporter of Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, who owns a Bentley and sabotaged the trial of a sexual grooming gang. But Farage is doing very well for himself. He's made £786 through Meta, $15,512 from Google for writing social media, and an astonishing £154,775 making cameo videos. More traditionally, MPs write for the newspapers, and there's still money to be made there. As with the BBC recruiting, it's a fairly small talent pool. Last year, Esther McVeigh received £15,893 from the Express. Ian Duncan Smith pitches often, receiving over £7,000 from 4 newspapers. Another favourite is Tom Tugendhat, who took over £3,000. The Telegraph are the largest print funder. They paid £200,000 to Conservative Party MPs, and Platform Nigel Farage with another £48,000. They might as well carry a full-page advert for the PKE Bull Hubbard electrometer. Great Britain! In at number 6, Labour's Torsten Bell supplements his significant Observer earnings with £10,865 from book revenue. Ed Davey takes a break from his whistle-stop tour of Thunderland amusement adventure at £14,250. That poor child. But he's far short of Jess Phillips, who this year netted £39,975, now sliding down the charts after lying to Parliament last week. Diane Abbott has 1,000 over Phillips for A Woman Like Me from Viking Penguin. That's a prime target of scumbags on WhatsApp at number 3. At number 2, Queen of the Quakers and Bloomsbury favourite, Yuan Yang is the MP for Early and Woodley. Her books 2024 to 2025 have earned her £43,162. The English agency Japan have also paid her £31,753 for writing, so watch out the top slot. And holding on at number 1 probably is good trade for Minister of State for Trade Policy, prolific Chris Bryant, writes up £69,000. Chris, give me that. Labour Together is an organisation that hit the headlines a few weeks ago. This is a party think tank funded by millionaires that didn't declare £730,000 worth of funding with intent. This happened, broadly speaking, between 2017 and 2020. It was something that was explained to them then and at great length from the regulatory body as very illegal. A new book by investigative journalist Paul Holden is already returning the story to the headlines. Fraud presents new evidence showing how the money went into securing Starmer's electoral positioning as Labour leader. Something key organisers Morgan McSweeney, Steve Reid, Imran Ahmed and others did by mass gaslighting everyone from Jeremy Corbyn to Anne Frank as anti-Semites. And to achieve the aim of Labour under Starmer, they took a dive in the 2019 election. Author Holden has seen documentation of McSweeney confessing he'd be caught doing what he was doing. The press, politicians and the courts haven't really caught up with them yet, but nowadays Labour Together are a lot more careful. This year Rachel Reeves claimed £14,870 for writing for the organisation. If that's not taking the piss, David Lammy wrote to get paid £67,673 from the group that got him in the cabinet, and thus pays him. There are a lot of spooky things in Labour cabinets. Well, that's all from Screen Cleaner this time. Light our lanterns with a like, a shivering subscribe and a cackling comment. Then away and enjoy some hot steaming broth. Bye-o.
Andrew. He just needs to bring his mic closer. Maybe put on a noise gate because I heard some other background noises as well. Maybe from outside or in the rest of the flat or house. But that was brilliant. Wow. Okay, take them off. That was fucking awesome. Everyone, go and follow Andy. That was great. Right, shall we? There we go. Go and follow Andy. Oh dear God. This is going to be fun. Take it away, Jimmy.
A kind of anti-Londonism, like a London skepticism. It's our country! This video is brought to you by Incogni.
I'm in East London and that is City Hall. That is where Sadiq Khan is doing absolutely nothing about the rising crime rates in London.
That disgusting human being who happens to be the mayor of London.
Lately there's been this growing political movement of a kind of anti-Londonism, like a London skepticism. It's our country! You should be here standing with us! A city that has fallen to multiculturalism and soft two-tier woke policing. And the solution is for us to take back control and return it to this period of time in London where everything was just perfect. So today we're going to work out what the hell's going on. We're going to break it all down and work out why conservatives hate London.
London used to be the crown jewel of the UK.
You go in there, you'd experience British culture. You go in there, you'd know you was in England. You go in there, you would feel the pride, you'd feel the motivation, you'd feel the energy that fucking London gave you. None of that exists anymore.
So when we hear people say like they want to take London back, restore it to its former glory, it is quite important for us to sort of delve a bit deeper into that and ask the question, when was this former glory? Like specifically, when are we talking about? So
any Londoners in chat? Because I'd really love for you to pitch in if anything here that Jimmy. Obviously, he does lots of good research and stuff. I know that. I've never been. Both my sisters, my mum, my stepdad, my niece, even my super hubby have been to the place. Super happy to get his passport many, many years ago. His is very, very out of date. Sitting in a tin over there. We can't quite afford the £88.50 cost to get a passport, unfortunately. Me, myself, and I have never been. I've asked my lovely Niblet, that's my younger sister's eldest child. It's their birthday in December, by the way. Sweetie, what's it like? Expensive. Do not take Super Hubby. Everyone, my two sisters and my mother included, have said he won't like it. You'd struggle to walk around the place. I'd struggle to walk around Mons Flat, for fuck's sake. Don't get me wrong, I'd like to go down and visit London one day. I really would. First of all, I'd need to save up a couple of thousand according to what my family's told me. But if anyone can give me any insights to what life's actually like in London, feel free to say so in chat. Thank you.
we have to explore a little bit about London's history, why it is so important to the country. Okay, so London for a very long time has had this sort of built-in problem, and that is that it's kind of like some fucking economic Hoover. Before World War II, Britain had well and truly industrialized. And so the many farmers and, agricultural workers in the country before this period, in order for them to find work, they had to move from rural areas towards big cities. In 1801, just 20% of British people lived in urban towns. By 1901, that had completely reversed and 80% of British people now lived in towns and cities. And London's population absolutely ballooned. It went from 1 million all the way up to 6 million. Factories, docks, newspapers, railways, finance, everything revolved around the capital. In this period of time, London was the fastest growing urban expansion in the entire world. And this growth was just uncontrolled, right? There was no plans, organization, there was no sewage system, just pure free market economic growth. A growth that kind of turned into a cancer.
Walk through a narrow alley, shrouded in grime and fog, the air thick with the smell of sewage and coal smoke, while under your feet a slick of mud and refuse makes each step more treacherous than the last. It's dawn in Victorian London.
This period of time, right, it's almost comical how bad living standards were. Housing was absolutely fucked. You'd have whole families in a room no bigger than your bedroom. In some situations, sanitation was so scarce that in this particular situation, 25 different families shared one toilet. Just a load of bros doing big old stinky man shits.
Oh, hell no!
In 1909, there was a report that showed that in the East End, a population of 900,000 people, 1/3 of them lived in extreme poverty, like just living amongst open sewage and rats just chomping at your toes. And like, we don't have the time to go through just how bad it was, but there was a whole industry of sifting through dog poo in search of what was called brown gold. So yeah, you get the deal, right? It was pretty bad, right? Disease, cholera, TB, typhus. Very often major outbreaks would happen. There'd be massive massive death tolls. Things were, as I would call them, unchill. And you have to think, right, a lot of London, you know, when you walk around, you see all the beautiful buildings, the architecture, all of that beauty that still exists to this day and all that wealth was quite literally built off the backs of people in the gutters below dying to build them. And it would be in this time, sort of Victorian industrial Britain, where London would earn its reputation as a city of crime. And the media fucking loved it. There was a paper called the Illustrated Police News, and it would pump out content each week of very vivid images of crimes that were happening in London. Things like the baby farm murderesses. These were a series of women who basically killed infants for money. For these newspapers, crime and all its gore had become content. From art to stories to newspapers, these writers, the newspapers, the illustrators were creating a story of London, where in every alley hid a murderer. Every woman was just a ginned out mess. Every poor man was a potential pickpocket. For sure, as London grew as this urban hub, of course crime grew along with it. But you would see things that were becoming a bit of like a moral panic.
Although crime in England's capital was on the decline in the mid-19th century, thanks in part to the relatively recent formation of the London Metropolitan Police Force in 1839, fear of crime was a persistent, reoccurring issue thanks to a few instances of robbery and murder, and of course the news media. In particular, there were these so-called garrotting cases, where someone strangles someone else, often using their arm or a length of wire, cord or cloth. These seemed to touch the rawest nerve with the people of London, with their fear of garrotting reaching a fever pitch in the 1860s.
And it caused this big outrage, and Parliament passed the Garroters Act in 1863, which introduced public floggings as the punishment for violent robbery. But you have to take things in context, right? Violent crime in London in the Victorian era was actually a smaller percentage of all crime. Garrotting, in particular, was a very, very rare crime. And in fact, violent crime only accounted for 10% of all of the crime in London. 75% of crime in London was petty crimes. And so while yes, there were violent criminals, and in this period of time we started to see more organised criminals and gangs forming, the political response to those crimes was to become much tougher and much more brutal on all crimes. Public floggings as well as public hangings, and sending people to workhouses, which were effectively slave labour camps. This created a very dramatic and visual display of punishments of crimes out in the open. This smaller percent of violent crimes became a perfect media distraction, using those crimes to paint the wider working class and those who lived in poverty as kind of all being like naturally inclined criminals. At any moment they might garrot you, and it would be all of this that would set the scenes of a story of London, an impression of a lawless, criminal, evil place that would stick with us until this present day. So when we go back to these videos, right, where they sort of romanticize the past of London as this lovely place, and we're trying to pinpoint when exactly do they want to return to, probably it's not going to be this period of time like the 1800s and the first half of the 1900s. It's probably not then, because life for your average Bob and Sue was pretty shit. So if it's not then and it's not now, when specifically do they mean? I've seen this video doing the rounds a little bit lately, and look, I couldn't find the exact date of it, but I think we can work out roughly, based on the clothing, the vehicles and general aesthetic, this is probably somewhere between 1950 and probably like 1960. And I'm just going to say, this is an interesting period of time, right? If you're a conservative right winger, I mean, firstly, if you're not 60 or 70 years old, you never experienced this time. But secondly, this period of time was the least economically right-wing conservative period of time in our history. This window was a period of time of which the politicians, you know, scared of getting guillotined due to the rise of communism and the reactionary fascists that came of it, they agreed to use the state to improve the living standards of the working class. They gave them all housing, they gave them all healthcare, they gave them all education. Basically, the exact things that most of these people who talk about returning London to its former glory, they probably stand completely against.
Asylum seekers are getting free prescriptions, free eye tests, discounted glasses, free dental, free wigs, even free travel to and from their appointments. Well, it's not free, is it? because we're all paying.
And what's also interesting, right, because this is a period of time where the government became very involved in the economy, they also addressed the issue that I mentioned before of London becoming too centralised when it came to economic opportunities. The state came in specifically to undo that, to change that balance of power across the country by literally building 32 entire new towns. The goal of this was to spread out the economy. It was to get people out of overcrowded London, spread the wealth out, diversify the economy, improve living standards for the working classes. This period of time that we are looking at right now in this video, that you're going to see from every right-wing GB News host who's trying to tell you we need to take our capital back. Yeah, the politics this time was closer to someone like Zach Palansky of the Green Party or Jeremy Corbyn, and basically the complete opposite of people like Nigel Farage or Tommy Robinson or Rupert Lowe. These lot right now would have considered the politics of the era that they idealise as communism. So, you know, I'm not sure if it's the economics or the politics of this era that these people want us to return to. Maybe it's something else.
Now, I walk through London on multiple occasions, and what I see in London, I see British culture, but I don't feel it. I haven't felt it for years. However, today, walking past Big Ben, looking at the flags, looking at you lot, I felt that British pride, British culture at the very forefront because of you lot. It's because of us British patriots that I felt British culture come alive today in London than I felt in a very, very long time.
Before we go any further with this video, I've been using today's sponsor Incogni for a while now. And honestly, I was pretty shocked when I found out that my personal data is just out there on the internet. My name, old addresses, and even family information. Luckily with Incogni, I didn't have to spend hours chasing each and every website for them to take it down. Instead, Incogni handled it all. And every single month I get updates showing me which of these data brokers have actually deleted my info. It's honestly great not having to worry about this anymore. And having your data out there on the internet isn't just about spam or scam emails. Imagine you're applying for a job or to rent a flat, and the person Googles you and sees a load of fake profiles set up in your name. Things like that can actually cost you opportunities. Incogni takes care of all these risks by wiping your personal data from people's search sites, shady directories, and now they've just launched a new feature, custom data removals. If you manage to find your own data on a website and it's not already covered, all you have to do is take the link, paste it into your dashboard, and Incogni's privacy team will take care of it for you. Unlimited requests, complete peace of mind. So if you're ready to take your data back, protect your privacy, and stop bad actors exploiting your info, go to incogni.com/Jimmy the Giant, and you can use the code Jimmy the Giant for 60% off their annual plan. That's unlimited data removal requests handled by experts. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Anyway, back to the video. Now look, I want to be super clear here. Whilst everything I said is true about that period of time, these videos that you're seeing of London in the 50s, the 60s, that is not representative of a full, accurate picture of the UK in that time, right? You got to think, you're literally looking at videos of Trafalgar Square, Oxford Street, Piccadilly Circus. I mean, these are the wealthiest places on earth at that time. If you were to walk 20, 30 minutes down the road, you would see the reality of London for most people in that period of time. Of the slums. And it's interesting, right, because in this period of time there were very few videos of the slums. Yeah, you would see quite a few photos, but videos not so much. And why that is because a lot of videos of this time were produced by the BBC, who were basically the state-owned media arm, who, under the direction of the government, wanted to use media to paint Britain in a really good light. And so, with that in mind, considering the fact that cameras were very rare and very expensive, the types of things that the BBC mainly chose to show was the good stuff. You're not going to get 1940s Ross Kemp on gangs, right? It weren't going to happen. If the BBC was going to film slums, they were going to film stories where the government were doing slum clearance, replacing these old tattered buildings with modern social housing. You know, a good news story. Look at it. Wow.
Most people feel that the new buildings, however ugly, are some improvement on the old.
So I find it so funny when you see these people romanticising this period of time. They are quite literally falling for 1950s British state propaganda. The reality of life in this time for most of the working class was they were only just starting to leave the slums. Most people would still be in slums. Minority groups such as Jewish people, Caribbeans, Irish, etc., they didn't tend to be allowed to join in with all this social progress, and most of them were just kept in the shitty old slums for a good period of time as well. But that wasn't what the BBC was going to show you.
If you're in the mood, you can eat outside. You can change from British roast beef to the food of Italy or Greece or China. You can eat modestly, or you can eat like a Renaissance prince in his palace garden.
And there's a second point around a lot of these videos, why sometimes they might seem nicer or more communal, is because this was also a period of time before mass tourism. So if you see a video of Trafalgar...
The same can be said for Glasgow, by the way. There's lots of slum clearances happening here. And there was overspill places getting built back then as well. Drumchapel, Cumbernauld, East Kilbride. They're all in the outskirts of Glasgow. Essentially, they were bringing down what was essentially called the Gorbals. It's still some people still call it the Gorbals. It's called Hutchestown now. That's just the other side of the river, by the way. Literally just the other side. So they were all getting modernised at this point as well. And in the north of the city, at the top of Hall Street, they were modernising and they were doing the bypass and the exits to go onto the M8, which is the main motorway linking Glasgow to Edinburgh, and great swaths of areas which were kind of thriving. They just needed modernising. They all just got brought down, and the people who were living there got moved out to these satellite towns like Cumbernauld, East Kilbride, Green Hill, blah blah blah.
Square. These are going to be people who lived and worked there mainly. You're not going to see a busload of Americans with a fanny pack and a I Heart London t-shirt. And as well, if you really look closely, I think you'll also notice this was a period before mass production. Even in the little details, if you look at a market stall, right, it's all handmade, it's all made of wood. Signage was made out of metal. It just had this sort of more handmade feeling versus seeing like the modern plastic signage of a Betfred. And the clothing that people wore back then to us now looks sort of fancy, right? They're all wearing suits. And it isn't because they just had better taste and respected themselves more. They just didn't have Primark. They're wearing relatively high quality handmade materials that they had to look after because it was their only option. And this is quite a common theme, right? When we look at pictures from our past when we were growing up, compare technology from the 2000s and now. Often when you look back at like an earlier period of technology, it can sometimes feel sort of less perfect and more human. And when you're living in a world that increasingly
Yeah, you get charged. You buy the licenses for some of the ones that you love. Like Americans love the most, like Doctor Who, Fawlty Towers, Downton Abbey, things like that, and Monty Python. So you bought all that. You got all the propaganda as well, the programming. But yeah, or us up here in Scotland, we call it the Below Birmingham Corporation. So whether BBC Scotland, but that one always made me giggle. The Below Birmingham Corporation.
feels more and more complex, complicated, confusing and unstable. All of this can create a sense of nostalgia for looking back at what can be seen as simpler times. There is a comfort in romanticizing and simplifying the past, and you can sometimes feel drawn to it. And it's this, right? It's this nostalgia that is often weaponized by politicians.
The Britain I grew up in was the most peaceful, the most gentle, homogeneous society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Fuck off, Starkey. Fuck off.
Okay, so let's jump forward a bit, right? 1986. Margaret Thatcher's in now. She sees all this social housing, unions, high taxes on the rich, full state employment, and she sees all this, and it creates the period of time which we're all nostalgic about. And she comes in and says, no, no. And one key decision that she made that completely changed London was to deregulate the banking sector. And like, yeah, that might have led to a few less economic collapses, but what about our Rolexes? Margaret Thatcher turns your house and your pension into a casino. And very quickly, the economic Hoover of London turns on once again, with Thatcher's politics focusing on a sort of winners and losers dynamic. By removing those large industrial industries from lots of the country, those areas fell into steep decline. They became the losers.
She's killed our community, no jobs, people's got no jobs, they're starving. It used to be a thriving community, and she just totally killed it all.
But equally, on the other side, by opening up the ability for people to buy their council houses under right to buy, she created an entire generation of asset-rich millionaire boomers who did very little other than get placed in a council house near London before the London house price boom happened. And basically, they won the postcode lottery. And so this was creating a split across Britain, right? These two very different life experiences of a very prosperous London and surrounding areas and a declining north and pretty much the rest of the country. And because London kept growing and becoming more valuable and everywhere else was in decline, it meant that the younger generation in search of work were beginning to be hoovered up back into London.
So are you quite well off, you reckon?
I think we're all reasonably okay at the moment, I think. But it's the safest and the steadiest the country's been for years. You keep it on an even keel. We've never had it so good, as I say.
And we can see, if we look at London's population on a graph over time, we see that those post-war efforts to diversify the economy worked. London's population massively dropped. But then over time, we see that the reverse trend happens and the population size rises back up to that previous Victorian slum era. London had started to change massively. And for some, this was a problem.
And why so many are furious with what their country has become.
I mean, there are communities in England that basically don't look like England.
Not him
anymore.
again.
I think that's where the loss of the familiar for many people becomes so existential.
So I think when we look at this sort of modern London skeptic kind of movement, its roots really seem to trace back to sort of the 90s. In the mid to late 90s, French officials dubbed London Londonistan. This was in response to a growing presence of Islamist radicals in London. In 2006, a book is written under the same name, Londonistan, linking London to a rise in terrorism. And like, yes, this was true. Islamic terrorism was on the rise, especially after 9/11. But terrorism was not new. After 1992, and all those years leading up to the Good Friday Agreement, the UK sees a massive sustained dip in terrorism-related deaths, like for many years. Like, look at the graph. There was a lot of people dying due to terrorism in the UK for a long period of time. But yeah, after 9/11 and the 7/7 bombings, the Iraq War, Afghanistan, fear around Islamic terrorism became a defining narrative, and London was casted as its epicenter. By 2008, that fear had managed to morph itself into something broader. The idea that immigration itself was an existential threat to the capital. The British National Party, right, the BNP, managed to get Richard Barnbrook elected to the London Assembly. And we see very early in 2008 this meeting that happened where he was grilling then London Mayor Boris Johnson over illegal immigration.
With the changing demographics, I'd like to know what stance you, the Mayor, and the GLA will actually take in trying to slow down this.
If I am incorrect, please correct me, someone in chat, or later on, once I've published it. Greater London Assembly, I believe.
Rapid replacement of the white British population in London.
And if you read these notes, it's very interesting because it is all of the talking points you hear to this day. The idea that illegal immigrants are taking resources, pushing out locals, and draining the system. All of this was leaving local Londoners behind, where you would see homeless ex-servicemen living on the street. And it's interesting, right, because these exact same words that you hear now were said in a period of time when migration, illegal immigration, refugees, etc., was much, much, much lower than it is now. However, back then, the BNP was broadly considered a far far-right, racist party, even by Nigel Farage.
We believe in less government, we're anti-authoritarianism, we have nothing in common with the British National Party whatsoever.
Yet the talking points that he was saying all the way back then are basically identical to a lot of what Nigel Farage would say now.
There are 1.3 million migrants in Britain on universal credit, and over half of them don't do any work at all.
And Nigel Farage jumps in on this whole anti-London thing from what I can see in 2012, where he's in his old party called UKIP, talking about how ending open-door immigration would create more jobs for Londoners. He talks about Londoners should be prioritised over non-Londoners for housing and jobs. And he has a plan to cap immigrants that are allowed to settle in London. And in 2014, Nigel Farage infamously said about London that when he travelled across London Bridge, New Cross, Hither Green, it wasn't until he got past Grove Park that he heard English being spoken, which he said made him feel slightly awkward. And so with all of this, right, all of this rhetoric, a growing narrative around London starts to form, of London being overrun by immigration. The economic strain and resources taken from presumably white Londoners. And this is all sort of happening politically around the same sort of time as the media obsession around knife crime youths. Now, I made a whole video on this knife crime phenomena of the 2000s. I'll link it below. Please check it out so I don't have to rehash the whole argument. But basically, it's very hard to know if knife crime was truly on the rise. It seems that the media and police focus on a crime that was already likely happening for a long time. This increase in focus somewhat distorted the reality of the situation. But anyway, that aside, you've got this youth knife crime thing in the media, you get the London riots, you get the terror attacks. And so a very immigrant-focused, racialized narrative of London falling into some kind of decline was truly taking a hold of politics. But it would really be in the late 2010s, after a flood of anti-London content on YouTube would really take this narrative to the next level.
Top of the morning to you, and welcome to one of the most messed up cities I've ever been to, with one of the highest crime rates in all of Europe, with about 40 knife crimes a day. Welcome to London.
So on YouTube, there is now effectively an entire industry, a niche of videos of talking about London and how dangerous and degenerate it is. It's like a whole niche. And it seems a lot of it came from Paul Joseph Watson, who is an affiliate of Alex Jones. After the London Bridge terrorist knife attack, Paul Joseph Watson made a bunch of videos about it, rallying specifically in the beginning against Islam specifically. And he continues to make videos about London, and he gets millions and millions of views, leading to a video in 2019 he releases titled London is a shithole.
Just like San Francisco, London has a massive problem with actual shit.
And he talked about London like it was this crime-ridden cesspit of liberal degeneracy. Which, I mean, yeah, he sounds like a fun guy to hang around with.
I care about white people and not San Jim. Yeah, I really think that you should press the button to wipe Jews off the face of the earth.
After depicting London in this way, he leaves the impression that it's all due to like some kind of cultural weakness. You know, dumb, woke uni students of London voting in politicians who only care about diversity, and that liberalism, wokeness, and soft two-tier policing had caused London to fall into decay. And if you think about it, right, London represents a lot of things, right? It's one of the most multicultural cities in the country. It has one of the youngest populations in the country and is one of the more liberal places in the country. But look, even if all of this storytelling of these videos was true, it's interesting because it seems as though most of this hatred towards London wasn't coming from Londoners themselves. Paul Joseph Watson hits an international audience, lots of Americans. And when you poll Londoners, unsurprisingly, they tend to like London. 80% of them saying that they feel they belong to the city. And it's interesting, right? If most of these anti-London people don't live in London, why would they care so much about what happens in London if it doesn't directly affect them?
London is a citadel of sin for bohemian upper classes, but for most other people, it's turning into a complete shithole.
Well, you see, this growing cultural-based paranoia around London arguably isn't just about that. There's something deeper going on, because it's not just about the culture of London, but also the very real economic and power-based imbalance of London versus the rest of the country. Now let's face it, right? London is a world of its own. There's so many different brackets of society there. I mean, it's home to Westminster with the House of Commons, the House of Lords, who decide the fate of the country. You have the political thought leaders and think tanks of Tufton Street down the road. And of course, London is the hub of all the big corporations, the big banks, all of which have the ear of the politicians. London gets all of the investment. It gets the best infrastructure. I mean, if we even look at HS2 as a perfect example, where they wanted to connect the north and the south of the country. In the period of time in austerity where they were cutting all of these big projects that had been proposed, this project got saved over all of the other projects that mainly focused investment into the north. And so as they build HS2 and inevitably got ripped off by the private developers, and we just so happen to run out of money, which part of the project do you think they cancelled? The northern part or the southern part? Obviously it was the fucking northern part. Basically, the north always gets left behind. And it creates the very real situation of London being completely disconnected from the rest of the country. I've got 4 interesting maps for us to look at, and I think it's fascinating. One is the favourability of London. So the darker green places are more favourable of London, and the lighter and then blue, least favourable. Then you've got a UK diversity map and a UK age map. And like when you look at it, I think it shows the 2 different Britons that exist. The map kind of shows us this trend that London is the wealthiest, the most multicultural, and the youngest. And that's where the favourability of London is the highest. But when you look at the places that dislike London the most, you tend to see a trend that it's the places with the least amount of money, generally older age demographics, and generally less multiculturalism. These places tend to have a lower opinion of London. And I think age is often really overlooked. I think it's a very important factor. When you ask millennials where is their favourite city in the country, London ranks number 2. If you ask Gen X, London ranks number 3. But if you ask boomers, London ranks 14th. Older people generally don't like London. If you ask if people disagree or agree with the following, London is in a bad state and a worse state than the rest of the country. Between the age of 18 and 24, only 8% of people agree with this. When you ask people aged 65 and above, 25% of them agree with that statement. And there's a massive political division as well. Only 11% of Labour voters agree with that statement, and only 9% of Lib Dem voters agree with it. That is compared to 27% of Conservatives and 46% of Reform voters. And so yeah, there is this real political split, right? If we consider Brexit, 60% of Londoners voted to remain in the EU. And so if you're a very populist politician, you can see a story that can emerge here, where you go to places in economic decline that have this long history of being underinvested in, left behind, and overlooked by the politically dominant London. And you can take that understandable resentment and tie in some cultural grievance. London can become a symbol of everything you don't like. And what better in this story than to have one evil villain, one boogeyman, a perfect target, the London liberal Muslim mayor, Sadiq Khan.
We are a Christian country. We adhere.
We're a secular country. The head of state might be the head of a church, but we're secular. Secularism is rising here in the UK, by the way, so what this man is saying is utter bollocks.
To Christian values, principles, and morals, and we must not let
Jesus Christ was a socialist. I believe, from what I've read. I was brought up Protestant, by the way. That Protestant work ethic can fuck right off. Thank you. That's the kind of Christianity these people are talking about, by the way. Quite a lot of talking points from evangelicals, religious fundamentalists, and people of that nature. You see, Islam is a threat. They're going to institute Sharia law, whatever the fuck that is. Christ's sake.
that be taken over by another ideology or another religion.
London Mayor, you're a disgrace. You're disgusting. You do not deserve to be in that position.
Sadiq Khan is fucking perfect, honestly, because he...
Shut up, Alex Phillips. These right-wing fucking fools. Thought we were in fucking Bellings.
He is a catch-all for every grievance of right-wing conservatives. And you can really see with this recent emergence of Ant Middleton, the guy wants to run for mayor of London. I think he's going to struggle, but, you know.
The star of SAS Who Dares Wins was criticised after controversial tweets about the Black Lives Matter protests and coronavirus. And then this morning, there have emerged allegations that he made inappropriate comments to female crew members.
And like, you know, the likelihood of him winning aside, Ant Middleton can represent a feeling amongst certain people. Often those who are not born and living in London, but people outside, that all it takes is it's just big, muscly SAS super soldier man to just like go in with the military and take London back. And I often see this kind of like, I don't know, military or almost imperial, like, I don't know, like connection to our medieval knights history, where they create this mythology that somehow the British people have in our blood some sort of vague ownership over London. Regardless if you're a wage cuck in a one-bedroom flat in Shitham, that doesn't matter because London is actually yours and you need to take it back from the migrants. This is our country! And the fact that their concern is really just over the migrants in London, they never talk about who actually owns London. They don't talk about the Qatari investment funds, the Russian oligarchs that buy up massive houses, the Emirati sovereign wealth, BlackRock, Hong Kong developers, and even British aristocrats. They don't really talk about the people who actually own it. But again, just London becomes this symbol of like old imperial nostalgia, fighting off hordes of invading armies coming to your city.
We're here to fight for our country, to fight for our capital, and to fight for one another. Never, ever forget that. If we can put 2 to 3 million people in our capital city today, just imagine what we can do when the time comes, if it comes.
And I know it's also a similarity. When these people talk about London, they focus heavily on crime, but in a very similar way to the Victorian era, focusing on that 10% of violent crime I mentioned earlier. So here is just the facts of the matter, right? That this endless talk of crime in London and lawless Britain that Nigel Farage loves to tell us about, Robert Jenrick doing his TikToks. This story they are trying to sell us just doesn't hold up to numbers. You probably didn't hear this, but last year, London reported its lowest numbers of homicides of under 25-year-olds in the last 2 decades. And that since the 90s, the year-on-year homicide rate has massively dropped. In 1991, London had a homicide rate of 2.7 homicides per 100,000 people. The peak homicide rate was in 2003. That was a rate of 3 out of 100,000. That rate dropped to 1.1 in 2014, a 3 times decrease from its peak. Now it came back up a little bit, but in 2024, London very recently just hit a 10-year low in homicides of 1.2 homicides per 100,000. When you look around other developed cities, such as New York, their murder rate is 4 per 100,000. Toronto, 1.7. Berlin, 3.4. Brussels, 3.2. Paris, 1.4. And even Copenhagen, 1.5. That's right. The place that many people on the right tend to always tell us that their lower murder rates, their lower crime rates are due to the lack of multiculturalism over there. London has a lower homicide rate than them. That is what should be called a good news story. We should talk about this a lot. But like, no, I don't tend to hear that. And you know, a lot of these sort of anti-migrant, the people trying to always say crime and migration are linked, often, you know, they will see these graphs and they will have their very clever rebuttal, which is that, bro, the graphs are fake. Which, it's the classic conspiracy theory argument because, you know, it's an unprovable claim, so I can't argue it, nor can they prove it. It's just a kind of dumb thing to say.
You hear it every year.
Unfalsifiable. If you don't give me evidence for this, actual hard evidence, I'm not going to fucking believe you. And this gets borne out, as Jimmy's saying. They can't prove it. Hello, scientist here, not a statistician, by the way. But if you can't give me evidence for this happening in the data, shut up, just go away. Oh, fuck, man frog.
Crime is falling, so please don't worry your poor little heads. Well, That's because the crime survey for England and Wales is based on completely false data.
But there are a few very hard arguments for them to address, specifically when it comes to the murder rate, because murder is a much harder crime to underreport, right? Because what are they doing? Are they hiding the dead bodies? Are they piling them up somewhere? And when we compare homicide rates,
A dead body is always going to be a dead body. It's harder to hide things that where people are still alive, things of that nature. But you can get rid of a body, obviously, but it's incredibly difficult. Things do get noticed. That person isn't there anymore. That person will be missed. They will be noticed not being there.
against migration rates, you will see as migration went up, homicide rates went down. There is no correlation, and if anything, there's an inverse correlation. And even if we get more granular, 2019 was the recent peak in homicide, but that was one of the lower years of recent immigration. I mean, 2023 was the massive peak in immigration, yet the lowest homicide rate in a decade was the year after in 2024. Obviously, it just breaks the argument apart. And combine it with that fact that the highest peak of crime in the UK ever was in the 90s, much before the rise in migration that followed. Now, a lot of people might hear that and it might contradict a lot of the stuff that they hear. They'll point to certain data that shows that certain crimes have gone up in recent years. Recorded crime has gone up 31% in the past decade in the areas that the Metropolitan Police cover, with violent crime up by 40%. And a lot of this is to do with better police recording, which can become a victim of its own success. If the police get better at recording and tracking specific crimes, or if they find crimes that previously weren't well recorded using new methodologies, the data will show increases in said crime because they got better at recording it. This is believed to be the case with that violent crime statistic. And what's unfortunate is that that argument is really rife for populist right-wing politicians to just say, oh, what a convenient excuse, you're just making it up. So one thing that is really useful to give us a clearer understanding if crime has really gone up or not is to look at crime surveys of England and Wales, so CSEW. These are surveys, right, where people are asked about crimes. This can usually capture crimes that do go underreported. The reports that show increases in sexual crime are one of the perfect examples because there has been massive improvements in police recording of sex crimes. And there's this really good Twitter thread here from Gavin Hales which shows crime surveys versus immigration versus recorded sexual crimes, where we see in the surveys that crime hasn't increased, but recording of those crimes have. And so this is why it's so important to use the crime surveys to get a real accurate snapshot of what's going on. And also the scale is very important. If we look over 5 years, you might see an increase, but if we zoom out to 20, 30 years, you will see a massive decrease. That is important if people are trying to say immigration is increasing crime, etc. Very specific example is knife crime in London, where reports will show knife offences have gone up. But if we look at hospital admissions for knife wounds, they have actually hit a massive low recently. This is a perfect example of the police getting better at finding knives. They might be doing more stop and search, etc. However, if hospital admissions for knife wounds are going down, we can say that, you know, stabbings have gone down effectively. And I know that's a lot of data, and I want to do that because it gives you a reality that really crime in London over a 30-year window has gone down massively. And statistically, Londoners are less likely to be a victim of violent crime than people across the rest of England and Wales. That's a fact. And you might hear all of that and be like, okay, the data might say it, but when I'm in London, I do personally feel less safe. And you know what? You might be onto something there. There was a YouGov survey recently where 51% of people thought that violent crime in London was rising versus 7% who thought it was falling. Basically, the majority of people are wrong about crime in London. But there's something weird about it because they feel like it's rising, right? They feel like crime is getting worse. And there's a few answers for this, and one of them is called the broken window theory. This is a criminology theory where signs of minor crime and antisocial behavior creates an environment that encourages further crime and normalizes disorder as a part of public life. Highly visible crimes that you see around you make you feel less safe. So if we take phone theft, for example, phone theft is very highly visible. It affects people. It's pretty distressing. You have your phone taken taken. That sucks. It costs you a lot of money to replace. That has been on the rise recently in London. And it's a crime that is really hard to police, right? Because the criminals, they're on like e-bikes, e-scooters. They can whip around and get away from the police very easily. And it's all done by these organized gangs and networks who can very quickly get the phone out of the country and sold abroad. And with phone theft in particular, there is a thing, right? It's got a fancy fucking name, that is called crime displacement by market substitution. This is where criminals shift their focus on, what crime am I gonna do today as a response to improved crime prevention, right? Perfect example is car radio theft, right? 80s and 90s, this was a scourge because people had these portable radios, you jammed them in, click all the buttons, Nirvana, you get it. People were just fucking cracking windows and stealing these left, right, and center. However, as technology improved, these radios just became installed into the actual car itself. This crime went from being a massive problem in the 90s to now basically not a problem at all. Car theft was a similar thing in the 90s. Car theft was quite common, but with the introduction of immobilizers and other prevention methods from stopping people actually stealing your car, this crime has come down a lot as well. Phone theft is a new crime that crime prevention hasn't caught up with. Phones are very easy, they're mobile, they're everywhere, they're worth a lot of money, they're easy to steal. So it's a perfect opportunity for criminals. Most likely over time, we'll find ways of preventing it. We'll get better at policing it. But right now, it's obviously on the rise because it's a new market opportunity for criminals. But as I say, because it is very visible and it affects people day to day and it sucks, if you take that and then combine it with another thing that you notice more in London now, which is the visibility of homelessness. There has been a 63% rise in homelessness from 2015 to 2025. And with homelessness, you will see more drunkenness, more drug addiction. Since 2008, deaths from drug abuse has massively risen as well. This has all happened over the last 15 or so years, right? In the period of austerity, where, as we chose to cut a load of money, 77 local authorities cut 26% of their budgets to deal with homelessness. Between 2013 and 2017, 630 homeless people died. So if you take all of that, right, and you bear in mind the fact that we had a 20% reduction to the police force during austerity, we start to see that visibility, this sort of broken window theory, worsens because you see more homeless people everywhere. You see them struggling with their mental health problems, drug addiction. It's very visible. It's very close to home and you see it. And so with all these things, phone theft, homelessness, the media hyper-focusing on gang crime, even if it's down. And if the councils have had their budgets cuts and there's less money to just even clean graffiti off of the area and look after the public space. And if you consider the media representation of London, just how different it was in the 90s, right? In a period of the highest crime rates ever, London was just the backdrop of any good rom-com. Notting Hill, Bridget Jones, Love Actually. But weirdly, as crime was falling in the 2000s, London in the media was being portrayed as adulthood, kidulthood, top boy. And so with all of this, right, all of this stuff, mix it together, you have a powerful, potent message and image that any populist politician can take and sell to the general public in order to gain power.
The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, was today on commercial radio talking about the fact that we've had 6 murders in 4 days in London, including an 87-year-old man stabbed to death on his mobility scooter. And Khan has said that we'd expected this because it's been a long, hot summer and people's tempers get frayed.
This London skepticism, right, this isn't actually a completely new thing. Throughout history, the enemies of progress very often have a deep hatred towards their capital. Cities tend to represent the future. It's where different cultures collide and new ideas emerge. Today's demagogues rage against woke, progressive, Islamized London. But it's all kind of the same shit, you know? Real anger, inequality, and decay taken and twisted into this mythology. A story about invasion and moral decline, anti-migration rhetoric. And I guess to some degree it's because it's easier. It's much easier to say, let's take back our city from migrants than to take it back from the landowners and undo the entire system.
It is a problem because we don't know who they are, we don't know the past criminal record, we don't know the past history, and they're committing some heinous crimes.
London is a unique place. I love it. I don't live there. It's a bit too fast paced for me, but I love to visit it. It's chaotic, it's messy, it's brilliant. It's very much alive and it's very unequal. Some people are living in absolute luxury and some people are really struggling. It contains the best and the worst parts of Britain as a country. And you always have to be skeptical of these people who weaponize against London. And power is too focused there. I probably would agree that Parliament should be moved out of London. And a critique of that and a critique of London centricism is very valid. But most of the people that are doing this sort of anti-London shit, for them it's just a political weapon. They don't really want to fix the country or improve it or push us into the future. Most of them just want to tear it all down for their own short-term gain. London doesn't need to go back to some mythological time. We need to work together to take London into the future. But not only London, but to bring the rest of the country with it. And to do that, we all have to come together and demand change. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to support me on Patreon. It massively helps the channel. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Peace.
Thank you, Jimmy. That was awesome. Right, I've been gone for over 3.5 hours. Let's go and see if the Northern Darling is still streaming. We'll go and say hi to Shanna. I'm assuming it'll still be Cranky Pants. Do you be going, my lovely Cranky Pants? If she is going, she's been going for 3.5 hours. 3 hours. 3 hours. Said she was going live at midnight. Cranky Pants. It is. Oh God, food crimes. Yeah. Nah, talk, I'm nicking that. You have no say. I'm taking it from you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You and I are gonna have a private story time sometime, because there's things that I want to share with you. They're not like TMI or anything like that. It's just stuff that I don't want on a VOD or a lot of people knowing. Shanna almost caused herself DID. I almost walked myself into DID, so, yeah. It was accidentally how I got Cappy to, start with a crush on me, but I was one of the OG catfish before catfish was a thing. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Ryan Bergara, and that thing over there is my colleague Shane Mid.
You're high and watching. I'm drunk and streaming. This is why we're friends, CJ.
Dang.
Each week we turn to you.
1 second.
To answer your burning questions here on Ghost Files Debrief. And I gotta say, Ryan, it's great to be back in the chair.
That's right.
I was gone last week.
Vacation.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
You had you were celebrating your anniversary. Correct?
Yeah, and I did so by losing my wedding ring.
Nice.
The biggest mystery I've encountered.
Still haven't found it, huh?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, that sucks. Well,
I'm very distraught.
If it makes you feel any better, according to you, I haven't found any ghosts.
Yeah, I guess we both
heavy emphasis on according to you.
Yeah. Brackenfern.
That's right. We're here to talk about Brackenfern.
Shanna
Now, normally we have been recording these
walked herself into
live
DID.
over on Watcher TV, but because we are actually out in the field recording Ghost Files currently, we won't be able to do it. So we are pre-recording this for both Watcher TV and YouTube.
So hello.
Hello to everybody.
Hi. Well, here's something exciting to make up for that. You know, it's coming down the pipeline.
What?
3 very exciting episodes of Ghost Files.
That's right. Now that you're watching this, next week we are going to be showing part 1 of our 24-hour investigation. I think we still don't know what we're calling it. I think it's still Ghost Files. We're calling it Ghost Files Alone Together internally.
GFAT.
Oh, balls!